Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Stardom Road podcast here on the Count Out Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Scott Edwards, and with me, as always, is Trent Breward. Trent, how are you today?
I'm doing well. It's right in the middle of winter. Things are getting cold down here, but things are heating up in the world of wrestling, so it evens out quite nicely. So I'm doing well.
Are things heating up in the world of wrestling?
Well, I mean, there's a whole bunch of Joshi happening as we're recording right now.
That's
Not
true.
just Stardom. Like, there's a lot of Joshi stuff happening, and it's a lot of exciting Joshi stuff happening, which means
That's
there's a
true.
lot of exciting stuff for me.
That's true. That's true. It's a lot of winning this time of year for us.
Mm.
If you listen to my other podcast, Five Star Joshi Show, I did declare this weekend the official start of Joshi Summer, as I often do every year. There's always a specific weekend. I'm like, all right, when are we going to officially launch this? And it just felt perfect. We got the Marigold event that by the time this comes out, it's already over. We had the Sendai Girls show, TJPW, lots exciting happened. But of course, we're here today to talk about Stardom, and not just Stardom's history, as we always do, with the Stardom Road podcast. And today's a very special episode. We have decided to bring back the tier maker, everyone's favorite tier maker, to rank the red belt champions, all of them, except for Micah. I'll start by prefacing that we're not
All the
including Micah.
defeated champions.
Yes, all the champions that have come before her, because we don't know what her reign completely
Mm.
looks like yet. And it would
Yes.
be unfair to judge it now. Spoiler alert, it wouldn't be that high. Uh, that's I'm not blaming her. I'm
Yeah.
not blaming her. She's part to blame, but I'm not blaming her. Uh, I had to start this off spicy. It's only correct because there hasn't been a lot of World of Stardom champions in this company's history. Very few. Like for
It feels like there should be more. It speaks to
yeah,
like the average length of the reign, but over like a 13 plus year run, the tier maker is pretty bare. Like there's
yeah,
not a lot of people we have to rank. We'll still bump this out. This will be a long episode knowing us, but like it's not a big tier list for us to rank. To the point where I was nearly thinking, oh, maybe we should chuck Micah in just to bump up the length by another 5 to 10 minutes. But yeah, it speaks to the average length of the reign.
mhm,
But yeah, it wouldn't have been fair to rank Micah because yeah, a lot of these reigns, if you only ranked it by say halfway through, you're not getting a full picture. And the whole point of the Stardom Road is to look at the full picture that we have in
mhm.
front of us. So yeah, we can only judge by what's happened so far.
Yeah, we have a lot to dive into here. There's been
Mhm.
17 World of Stardom champions in history, including Micah. We are going to be grading 16 of them, whether they held the belt twice. We will count each reign because that's only fair.
Yes.
This is World of Stardom Championship reigns specifically, not just the champions, because obviously some have held the belt twice. But this will be a lot of fun. I'm sure it will not anger anyone. We don't anger anyone on this show, I hope. We might,
Especially not with tier lists.
but there's some great historic champions in this company that helped shape the greatness of Stardom. And the way we are going to be judging this is on 5 specific variables. One, length, simple. So, like the length of the reign is important of how the
Mhm.
reign matters. If you had a long reign, you had a better chance of making it count. Did you make it count in within that time? That will be probably the least important variable, but it's a variable nonetheless. We also have importance. Time that you held the title. What did your reign do for the company? You know, there's a lot of very important title reigns in this company's history. Impact, that kind of goes hand in hand with importance. Impact is when your reign was all said and done, what did you deliver? What did you bring? What was your impact as world champion? Some recent champions, especially over the past few years, have had a big impact, obviously, in help growing Stardom, especially during a tough period, which was much of it being COVID and clap crowd. So we'll talk about that. We also have champion aura, which I think is very important. Did they
Mhm.
feel worthy of that world title. Some world champions that we will talk about grew into it. They gained that aura as they held the belt, and then some never got there. So that will be an important part to judge. And then, of course, match quality. That does matter here.
Yeah.
A lot of, everything goes hand in hand, but if you're having bad matches, you ain't making it count, and we will be doing the usual tier lists. We didn't name them anything different. It's S, A, B, C, and D. S being the best, D being better luck next time, champ. Or are you
I'll be
stuck?
not getting it next time.
No. Well,
Mm, 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 mm,
we'll
mm.
see. We'll see. Because we're gonna go in order. So we're not gonna make this difficult. We're gonna go in order from the first World of Stardom champion to the latest, which of course was Tam Nakano
Mhm.
at the end of 2023. So, Trent, are you looking forward to doing this? Do you like the levels of importance we're talking about? We're also going to be giving you the stats, how many defenses, days held, and other important notes along the way. Because if we don't give you that, we're not really covering it correctly, now are we? Because that all matters in judging these reigns.
Yeah, we could fudge the numbers if we wanted, but let's be honest, it's pretty easy to Wikipedia and cage match this stuff. So, yeah, we want you to know the facts. We want you to come into this knowing everything that you can. We want this to be as fair as possible. Obviously, there is going to be a little bit of personal bias coming into this. Yeah, we have our preferences, and yeah, especially when we're talking match quality, we prefer certain types of matches and the way certain wrestlers wrestle. But we are also trying to take a step back here and look at things as objectively as possible, as objective as you can take wrestling. Also, worth keeping in mind, neither of us were following Stardom from the very beginning. We've jumped in at different points. So, especially in the earlier years, we can only approach this from looking back at it. So, looking at especially the early reigns of Naito Takahashi, Io's first reign, uh, we can only really weigh in from our impressions, watching the matches back, how it kind of impacted the impression from a historical standpoint rather than we were there at Kirk and Hall in 2012. We can't comment on that. So bear with us in that respect. There's only so much we can do. We don't have a time machine yet.
No, we do not. But we have stats. We got our own watching, and we're just gonna give it a wham. We're just gonna give it our best. And if you agree, great. If you don't agree, cry me a river. What I will say
Or Jack
is,
Perry.
if you're listening on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts, I do recommend heading over to YouTube, because we are doing the tier list on the video, and that's always a good way to watch. If you're watching on YouTube, hello, hi, how you doing? Thank you for joining us. But let's get into it. At time, we've already talked for 10 minutes. We haven't even started the damn thing. You were worried about filling the episode. I think we'll be okay. So
I wasn't worried about filling the episode. That was the point.
let's get to it. S, A, B, C, D, as you see each champion at the bottom. If you would like to check out this tier list, we can, of course, add that in the description for anyone else to fill out, because, the World of Stardom history is a very important one. And I know a lot of people have opinions. Oh, boy. I'm looking at it. No, that wasn't about that. I'm looking through this, and I was going one by one, and I got to a certain point. I said, "Oh, we do have to talk a little bit about something." Finally on the show, so that should be
yes.
that should be. All right, I'm waking up. I'm ready to go. All right, so we start here. Nanae Takahashi, the first World of Stardom champion. For those who need to know, she held the championship for 602 days. Beating Yoko Bito in the tournament final to win the title at Stardom X Stardom 2011, and dropping the belt in March 17th, 2013 to Alpha Female. She successfully defended the belt, I believe, 7 times. She, of course, and like I said, 603 days. So lots of days there. Still the longest reign in terms of days in the belt's history. Did I say 602? I said 600.
Yes, 602 days, 7 defenses was correct. Just
Yes.
confirming that for you.
Thank you. Thank you. I will be better at that. So we're going to talk importance. We're going to talk match quality, champion aura, impact, and length. Start right at the top. Importance. Kind of goes without saying. You are establishing the World of Stardom Championship. And Ai Takahashi, obviously, there could be a debate of who was truly the top champion at this time. You had Nanai as the world champion. You had Yuzuki Aikawa as the Wonder of Stardom champion, really getting Stardom going. Right? She defends the belt for the first time against Natsuki Tayo. She also defends against Meiko Satomura, Haruo Matsumoto, Yoshiko, Alpha Female, Yuzuki Aikawa in a year-end climax match, Kyoko Kimura, and then, of course, Alpha Female once more. Trent, as we dive into this conversation, do you think where do you feel Nanai is in terms of the history? Do you think she is like the bar? Did she set the bar from the very start to you?
I think so because obviously Stardom was in a position where they needed certain levels of strength, and Yuzuki Aikawa was the ace. They were building the company around her, but you needed that veteran presence and that security blanket essentially in building the company. And Nanae Takahashi was that. You had someone you could reliably put in the main event or the semi-main event, someone you could build the company around as your world champion, while Yuzuki Aikawa, Arisa Hoshiki, Maya Watani, Yoko Bito, all these young up and comers could get ready. She was essentially babysitting all these youngsters, waiting for them to get ready for the company to take that next level. And without her, you weren't in a position to really do that. So her being in that position as champion, either defending the belt against big name freelancers or giving opportunities to the youngsters in those kind of title matches, is a very important situation to kind of be in, and a difficult one, really, because you're either having to carry people in their first year of wrestling or kind of having to lead that company against people who aren't regulars in your promotion. Now, obviously, Takahashi is not a newbie. She was a veteran even at this point. She's familiar with everyone coming in, but it's still a difficult position to be in, and I thought she did a very good job in that situation. She doesn't have the best matches in Stardom history during this period, but that's not what Stardom was really looking to do in 2011 and 2012. That's not
I
what was
mean,
being asked of her necessarily.
I think she had 3 crucial matches
Mm,
that kind
yeah.
of you would put in the conversation of some of the great World Star title matches. That being the one with Tayo, of
Mhm,
course. The 2 vets of the beginning of Stardom, very fitting first defense. Of course, you have the Mako Satomura one, and I
mhm,
think
mhm.
the big use upon defense as well. A very
Yeah.
important match, having those 2 face off. So I do think that while there are champions with better match quality throughout that's more memorable, I think she did do enough, obviously, in that
Mm,
reign. Again, setting the bar. That is something that Nanai did as the first world champion, something very important. Champion Aura, we talk about champion Aura. Nanai feels like a world champion. If you go back and watch
yeah.
this, Nanai does feel like the world champion. While yes, we talk about Yuzuki Aikawa being this mega star, Nanai Nanai was the key veteran on this roster, like you said, right? You made the joke she kind of was babysitting in many ways. It was her and Tayo as the key vets, while
Mm.
many of the other wrestlers were learning their way. So kind of because of the atmosphere around her, she did feel like a world champion, but that
I
helps.
guess the question there, and this isn't necessarily knocking her as having championship aura, is the state of the roster during that time kind of hindered that
Mhm.
impression? Because obviously, like, you look at some other
For
champions that
sure.
we'll talk about later who had genuine champion aura in a stacked roster
Mhm.
versus her having champion aura kind of by
Yeah,
default.
right. I think she
It's
takes the hit.
I don't want to say it's easy having champion aura against a bunch of rookies when you're a veteran, but it's an easier prospect versus someone against a bunch of veterans and experienced people. I do think she does have it, but I think if you know, and it's not fair to look at Nanai Takahashi in 2023, 2024. But if you were to say transport this version of Nanai into 2022 Stardom, 2023 Stardom, do you think she carries that same level of not necessarily final boss energy, but like top champion, undisputed level that she does here?
I think yes. Like I think you're absolutely right. I think there is a hit to that aura, and it's because not only of the roster around her, but like you said, the many champions that follow her are champions in a time where the rosters are like they're stacked, and they still feel like the one to be top champion. And we will talk about who
Mm,
those people are. So I do think that does take a hit for sure. She felt like a world champion for sure. She felt like a worthy world champion at that time. It made sense, but she does
mm.
take a hit because of history as well as who was around her. So I think that's a great point to make. Impact kind of goes without saying. She first World of Stardom champion, long record reign. However, I will take it back. She didn't put over someone in the end that helped grow this company.
Yeah.
And I
It's an
think that is
interesting
a big
decision.
part for her.
Mm,
She instead drops it to Alpha Female, who we will get to, and what Alpha Female's reign was for. I think that really does hurt part of her impact. Yes, she made impact as the first champion, setting the stage for that title, but that's why we talk about the length. That's why we talk about the full reign. You didn't put over the next top star in the end.
yeah, it's kind of like if Roman Reigns in WWE, if he kind of just put someone randomly over instead of
Right.
putting Cody Rhodes over at WrestleMania.
Mhm.
It's an interesting decision and kind of makes you wonder what the politics were in 2013 Stardom at the time. You could argue, oh, maybe they were protecting the match for later on, but then when you look at the match that then happens between who was the next big
Yeah.
star in Stardom and how that match unfolds, it's like, well, they didn't really make it definitive there either. So it's an interesting decision. I do think it hurts the final result in that situation. You can dock a point, certainly. I don't
Yeah.
think it's a massive docking, but I do think it does have to be taken into consideration.
It's a classic that doesn't work for me, brother. Uh
Yes, yes.
and the length, obviously the longest reign
Mm,
in
mm,
the history of the title and defended it for that time period a good amount.
yeah.
Based off of, her first defense came 4 months after, her second defense was 4 months after that, then two, then three, then two, then two, then one, then two. So, like, in terms of, that's kind of like a Japanese world champion type thing,
Mm. It's
like,
a benefit of the time as well. Like that,
yes.
they didn't have a lot of up and coming champions ready made at this time. They're importing a lot of challengers. It's an acceptable amount of defenses given the circumstances.
Yeah.
You're not going to chuck Mayu Iwatani from 2011, 2012 into a title match at this
Right.
point. So it's understandable, I think.
Yeah, I mean, again, the first three defenses were all key veterans of the scene: Taiyo,
Mm,
Satomura, and Hiroyo Matsumoto. So I think that's kind of fitting of where that title belt was, and they worked Yoshiko up for 1 year later at Stardom X Stardom, um,
mm,
to be the fourth challenge. Then you have the Alpha Female, which of course sets up the final match of the reign. So the length, it's a fine, it's a obviously a great length,
yeah.
and for the time period, it makes sense in terms of how many defenses within that
Mm,
time. So
yeah.
I do, I think she gets a thumbs up for that. When we go to tier, now we got to go to the tier. And for those who have been following the conversation, there were hits in Impact for the end, champion, or in terms of thinking of the history of this title and the roster at the time, while she was a good champion and fitting world champion at that time, you do have to take that into account. I'll also bring up the Yusupon part. Yusupon did feel like the biggest star at the time, so you could take that. So that's a hit there. Match quality, there are some great matches within her reign. And
Mhm,
again,
mhm.
for the time, I don't think she takes too much of a hit there. It's there's other reigns that just have banger after not to quote Sheamus, but banger after banger after banger, right? She doesn't necessarily have it, but she has many great matches that are memorable, especially in those first few years. And then importance, there was a lot of importance being that first World of Stardom champion, so no hit there. I'm thinking B. I think she would be B. I would accept low A, but for me, she is the bar of this. And it feels like B just feels right.
I'm glad you went first on this one. I was leaning high B, low A. I could be talked into even. The fact that you led with B makes me feel more comfortable with this. Obviously, we can negotiate and move things around depending on where
When it's
certain
over.
placements go later on. I think, high B is a fair placement given the circumstances, at least at this stage. There's enough
Yeah.
good things there. There's enough slight detractions there to kind of put it as a nice baseline level. Um, we'll see where everything goes.
She really was the bar setter for this title's history. Like it's
Mm.
really the perfect range to start this conversation off. Yes, it happened to be the first one, but just considering everything that she did, maybe didn't do, it feels right. I think low A, depending where we end up towards the end, could be well in discussion. But for now, I feel pretty good about B.
I did a mock one of these, kind of like where I think things would
Yeah.
go. I think B is the right spot because I actually struggled to put enough in the B category.
Okay. That makes
Just
sense. That
putting
makes
an
sense.
advanced spoiler
It,
foreshadowing there. So,
just based off of like quick thought of it, it makes sense because there's a
yes.
lot of the reigns are either all-time greats or oof,
Yeah.
So
Speaking of,
speaking of oof, the second World of Stardom champion, of course, was the alpha female,
yes.
um, who won the title from Nanae Takahashi at Stardom, the highest 2013, and dropped it just a month later, 43 days later, to Io Shirai at the Ryogoku show that Yuzupon retired at. So
Mhm.
to give you an idea. And this where this is where our conversation comes into play, right? Nanai didn't put over the next generation. The next generation, of course, was Io Shirai. They gave that job to Alpha Female. And obviously, Alpha Female forever in the history of Stardom. Still helping Rossy Ogawa's promotions to this day. Shouts out to and I quote, the motherfucking Bozilla. That is what she says. I had to do it. But her reign, very lacking, obviously. This is the ultimate transitional champion.
Mm. This wasn't meant to rank in the upper echelons of championship reigns. This was purely a case of we don't want Nanai to take the loss to Io Shirai. Now, maybe you could make the argument of Nanai had other things to do for his Usapon's final show, whatever. The reality is, it's probably more a case of we don't want Nanai losing to Io Shirai for the title in this situation. So let's give Io Shirai a win over a monster. And Nanai losing to Alpha Female, that's believable. Like, we can make that work. So they did it this way. It also doesn't help that both the match where Alpha Female wins and loses the title, neither of them are particularly memorable. They're not matches that you're going to say, oh, look, go check out them. They're not highlight matches for either of
No.
the other wrestlers' title reigns here.
Hmm.
I mean, the only reason you wouldn't put it in the D category is if you're making a separate category, which is just purely for transitional champions.
Yeah. So to quickly go through the levels here because you can kind of see where we're going here. Importance, I will give her the credit of the importance was getting the title onto new Io Shirai. That is the only
First
importance.
foreigner.
Yeah, this is the first foreigner as well. Match quality. Sorry. Champion aura. Well, she was a monster.
She was believable in the
Yes.
sense of, like, if you saw her with the title, but yeah, I believe you as a top champion until the bell rang.
Impact, nothing. You didn't have the belt
No.
long enough to make an impact. And speaking about not having the belt long enough, only it was 43 days, no successful defenses.
Yes.
There isn't
Categorically, the weakest reign.
there isn't a debate here. It is a D tier rank for alpha
Mhm.
female. Alpha female means a lot to Stardom's history, especially the early days. Obviously,
Yeah,
her
not
role
meant to
of being
discredit
more.
Alpha, but
No, where this is just the reign, which
mm,
was a transitional title.
yes.
What wasn't a traditional title reign was the first World of Stardom Championship reign for one Io Shirai. You might have heard of her, a pretty big deal, if I'm not mistaken. She had 10 successful title reigns while holding the belt for 468 days. From April 29, 2013, when she beat Alpha Female, until August 10th, 2014, when she lost the belt at Stardom X Stardom. You've heard that one before, against Yoshiko. So this one is where the fun begins. Io's a very fun case in this conversation because she comes up twice, and both of them are quite important.
Mm,
So, spoiler alert, importance, there's importance there. In terms of compared to the history of Stardom, there are more important title reigns,
mm,
but this is still Stardom, still the early days, and becoming a worldwide superstar through her first and then soon eventually second reign. Dive into the importance for us, Trent, in terms of Io Shirai's first World of Stardom title reign.
yeah, so it is important to divorce yourself from the two title reigns here. It's very easy when you're
Yeah.
talking about the importance of Io Shirai's red belt runs to kind of marry the two reigns together, but
Mm-hmm.
you sort of got to separate them. The first reign is definitely important because it's all about establishing Io Shirai as your next big star. And when you kind of look at who she's facing, like she beats Alpha
Mm-hmm.
Female, but then she beats Yoshiko, she faces Kyoko Kimura, then she goes against Anaya Takahashi, beats she draws with Arisa Nakajima in kind of like a combo JWP World of Stardom match. All
Mm-hmm.
in those first few months, it's all about establishing herself against big names, couple of monsters in there, the big sort of face of Stardom. It's all about developing her as your top star,
Mm-hmm.
sort of establishing where she is in that upper echelon. The second half of the reign, you'll kind of notice she's facing cheerleader Melissa. She faces Starfire, uh, Takumi Iroha, who at this point is just kind of 13 months into her career. She's just outside of her rookie period. It's a reign of two halves,
Yeah.
establishing Io Shirai and then just kind of letting her not rack up wins, but make herself prove herself as a champion in the
Yeah.
long run. So it's a championship reign for her. She has other big matches in that second half. Obviously, she's facing Miko Satomura. There's another alpha female defense in there as well. But in terms of importance, it's all about establishing Io Shirai here. So obviously that's very important. In terms of where Stardom is at this point, it's sort of Stardom has had a few years to grow here. Now it's just all about continuing to build, continuing to develop its talent. You've got Kari Hojo starting to come through the ranks here. Maya Utani starting to develop herself. Yoshiko starting to really come into her own as a talent as well. It's all just, you've got all these up and coming talents coming through. Takumi Roha, obviously, as well. But it's all about EO's here now. That's the top young
Mm-hmm.
star. That's where it's all about and that important. How do you develop your next big star? I
Yeah.
think they do a very good job of that.
Yeah.
Second
She
half,
had.
yeah, it could be better, but
Yeah, she has the importance down. If there's a hit, there's a little hit, but not a big one, obviously. In
mm,
terms of match quality, which you kind of hinted at there, um, like you said, a tale of two halves. Obviously, you have some fantastic title matches within this one. Many people point to the Mako Satomura defense as one of the great
mm,
all-time Stardom matches. You have two matches with Yoshiko in this reign that are both very good.
mm,
You do have, like you said, though, you have a match against a very young Takumi Iroha. You have a defense against Starfire. One
That
against,
match it's not a great match. It's fine.
you know,
The
you know,
Nakajima match is definitely worth tracking down for people who haven't seen
yes.
it.
You of
Yeah.
course have the match with Nakajima. That is one of the great. You know that you have those high quality matches that are. We talked about in the nine reign. Like Nanai may have not had like the great all timer
Mm.
matches, but she had some great ones. Io had some all timer type matches in this first reign, but there's also some that take a hit. So it's in terms of match quality, it's good, great. But there are, like you said, when you're trying to build up a reign and give her some defenses, it's going to take a hit on the
In
weight.
reality, any title reign that goes longer than a year, there's probably going to be a match or two at least that is a little bit of a filler defense.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of comes with the territory. Like, not too big a deal in a long reign. That becomes less problematic. It's just noticeable when you get a few of them around the same period.
Champion aura. Io Shirai obviously embodies the World of Stardom
Mm.
title. She is one of the many. This reign was used to get her to that level that is the one that we will talk about later. So she feels like the world champion when it's all said and done. She feels like the top star, and undeniably the top star. Um, what is your take in terms of champion aura for Io in reign number one? Again, everybody, we are not combining them both.
This is an interesting one because it's actually quite handy because you can compare championship
Yeah,
aura here to how she looks in a couple of years.
right.
She does really well considering how early in her career she is. Like, she's had a few years experience, but she's still pretty young here. She does a
Yeah.
good job of establishing herself as a young star. She feels
Mhm.
like someone who, yes, she's still early in her career, but can hang with the top stars. And
This time I
you
think she's
again,
21 years old, by the way.
yeah. And look at who she's facing early on. She goes out female Yoshiko Kyoko Kimura. So it's a classic case of the young high flyer versus monsters.
Mhm.
That is, yeah, chef's kiss booking in terms of putting someone who you can do kind of the underdog going up against a monster. She carries herself perfectly through this period, and then the veteran in Nai Takahashi. She carries herself as that young ace to perfection here. I would say, she carries herself as a champion. And the
Yeah.
only reason you wouldn't give her more credit here is because you see like how much of a champion she looks in a couple of years' time. She
Uh-huh.
goes from young champion, young ace to final boss energy, true top star, undeniable in just a couple of years' time. So really good job. Probably you'd say 7, 8 out of 10 here, and then
Mhm.
just finds the extra couple of points with just a couple extra years experience.
Let's talk about impact. Very important reign in terms of, again, establishing would be Stardom's future. That is her
Mhm.
impact here. It is
Yep.
is establishing herself as the top star and eventually one of the top stars in all Japan,
Mm.
the country, not the promotion. Um, Also puts over someone deserving at the time of getting the World of Stardom title in Yoshiko, which I think is very
Yep.
important. And I know some people are going to fight me on that because of the events that followed, but that's a different conversation. Okay,
Mm.
thank you. So like
Right person at the
impact,
right time. Yeah.
but again, the problem with the first reign for her is you keep looking at the second reign. You're like, well, she made a bigger impact here as champion this time.
Mm.
It's kind of like the aura for me in that it's bumped a few points, but she still makes an impact because this is a reign people remember fondly. Arguably the
Mm.
first great reign of this belt for people. I think there is an argument for that, and she set the defense record at the time. She did everything she could. Really, she
Mm.
wrestled the young stars who would become future stars down the road. Obviously,
Mm.
Takumi's a big star in her own promotion now. You have the big outside matches even with someone like an Arisa Nakajima, which is pretty impactful. And a big part of Stardom's history is those outsiders coming in and challenging for belts. We see it now in Stardom, outsiders coming in. But I do think it takes a little bit of a hit for sure.
Yeah, this time period is kind of an interesting one because obviously the first couple of years was all about establishing Stardom, and then you got kind of in a lot of ways, everything kind of jumps to the post Yoshiko period with Stardom. These
Mhm.
couple of years are kind of forgotten, even though with Io Shirai, it's a very important formative couple of years for both Stardom and Io Shirai. And I guess in a way, you could say it loses a bit of value, not value, but like impact because these years just kind of happen in like the grander discourse of Stardom history. And look, part of that is because a lot of the matches and what happens are so inaccessible in like 2023, 2024. Like you just can't go back and watch them easily now.
Yeah.
But just a lot of what happens just isn't really discussed and talked about. There's not a lot of big events that really go on during this period. Now, that's not Io Shirai's fault necessarily, but as the top champion, it does kind of shine a light on important things are going on here in Stardom, but it's a bit of a lull after the important couple of years. Aikawa leaves, Io Shirai takes over, but you don't see the full fruits of what goes on during this period until the Three Daughters era of 2015, 2016.
It's a very, like you said, it's a very weird era because like
Mm,
I think when people talk about Stardom's history, a lot of people go from like upon retiring to the post Yoshiko era, like you said, and it's like there's this big gap there.
yeah,
It's more than
things
a
are
year.
happening here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like it's almost 2 years of that.
Mm,
Um, so I do think that's kind of where it does take a hit. It's not, and again, we'll talk about length here at the same time. She did have a long reign as champion,
mm,
one of the longest in the title's history. I believe the third longest. Yes, third longest. Of course, following her own and Nanai's in terms of days. Um, and she was able to make the reign solid, but like we said, there are some in there that does feel like, all right, let's just pad the stats here a little bit. Um,
yeah.
and padding the stats is fine because EO is EO, and it got
And
it
I mean,
got
most
her
long championships have them.
it got her to, well, yes, they do, but I also like to look at it. Were those matches at least worth it in terms of the wrestlers who were in them and
Mm,
where they would go and where they would take that match? Um, so length she has covered here.
yes.
In terms of the simple, again, that doesn't really firmly control this, but length does help a lot in establishing reign, as you can see by the tier list. So, Trent, I'll let you go first this time. Where are you putting Io Shirai's first reign as World of Stardom champion?
So I'm in a similar boat here with the Nanai Takahashi reign. To me, it's on that borderline between the high B and the low A.
Uh
I
huh.
would rate it higher than the Nanai Takahashi.
Yes.
It's just a matter of whether you're putting it on the A or the B.
Yes. So I'm thinking into the future here while thinking of
Yeah.
this, like thinking of the other reigns we talk about. How many I do think place in at least A, if not S. And I think for this one, even more so than the Nye, I'm comfortable putting in high B first
Mhm.
and then seeing where we are, say, after one of the reigns. Because I do think
Yes.
I can push it up once we get there. But for now, in my head, especially because of her second reign, I feel good putting it ahead of Nanai, but not necessarily
Mhm.
low A yet, because there are some reigns in that A section
Mm.
that I feel very comfortable about, and I don't know if she's in that conversation with this reign necessarily.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. It's one of those things like it looks weird now. We were talking about, oh,
Yeah.
the Bs are difficult to fill, and we've got two in there, but there's a reason why we've got
It
those two
slows
in there.
down pretty
Yes.
dramatically.
Yes.
uh, so, of course, after Io Shirai's 468-day reign, it was Yoshiko who took over as World of Stardom Champion, defeating Io Shirai at Stardom X Stardom 2014. She would defend the title, of course, against Saki Akai, the year in Climax 2014, Nanae Takahashi at the 4th anniversary show. And then, of course, the reign came to an end on February 22nd, 2015, in a match at the Act Asakawa. As if you know about it, we haven't talked about it on the show yet. We do plan to cover it in a full episode somewhere down the line, but we want to do it correctly, so we haven't dove into it yet. So we will dive into it here because obviously it's a very big part of this entire belt's history, and of course Yoshiko's reign as champion. As you know, that day, the events that happened in the ring and so on between Aki Asakawa and Yoshiko, very well documented. So let's dive into this reign, shall we?
This is such a difficult reign to rate because of the cloud that hangs over it because of that match with Act Asakawa. And it's to the point where it's kind of difficult to rate full stop. In a way, to me, it's an automatic D because of that.
Yeah.
Look, it's definitely helped because this isn't like a reign that goes on for 8 to 9 months and has classic matches. The
Right.
match with Nanae Takahashi is a good match. The match with Io Shirai is a good one as well. I'll be honest, I haven't seen the Saki Akai match. I can't comment on that. But like, it's not a reign that has a lot of depth to it before the
Notably, was
ghastly
only
match.
11 minutes, by the way. That
Yeah, so
match
there's not a lot there. Like, she obviously had a bit of aura to her as a champion and stuff, but I don't feel bad putting this in D, considering the
No.
circumstances surrounding its conclusion, because I don't think there was enough preceding it that affects the judgment.
Yeah, I do want to quit. I know, like, this is a tough subject, and these two, Act and Yoshiko, have talked about it. They've moved past it, so we're gonna quickly move past this reign as well. But I do want to say, like, I'm not, again, we're gonna put it in D. Okay, full disclosure, it's gonna go in D. I'm gonna, like, play it simple. I'm going through the sections here. Champion aura, Yoshiko did feel like a world champion. I will say that. But when you talk about impact and porn, smash quality, length, it's like, throw it out the window, because the way it ended, obviously, just the disgusting horribleness that happened in that match with Aki Asakawa. It created a different energy for Stardom, which we will talk about coming up. So, Trent, do you want her ahead or below Alpha Female?
I mean, in a way, it's kind of in its own category. I would put it behind Alpha Female, just in the sense that, like, we're not rating the reign really in the same sense that we are everyone else.
No.
Yeah, and just on the topic, we've talked about, like, pretty much as soon as we discuss Stardom Road as a podcast, we discuss, like, how are we treating that, Akira Sakawa and Yoshiko. We do intend to cover it. We want to cover it properly because there's a lot of information out there and there's a lot of misinformation out there. We don't want to cover that topic half-assedly.
No.
But it's a very difficult topic to cover properly. We're two people on the other sides of the world. We don't necessarily have access to the situation, and neither of them are really going to be like, oh, here's the full story, here's exactly what happened. And we don't really want to bother them about it. So how we cover it, we don't fully know yet. We don't want to touch it until we can do it justice and give the story as it should be treated. When we get there, we get there.
Yes. So we move on.
Yes.
So a new World of Stardom champion had to be crowned because, of course, Yoshiko would leave Stardom following the incident for obvious reasons, relinquishing the title, and we would have a new champion crowned 1 month later in the final of a tournament, crowned at the highest, and that champion would be one Kairi Hojo. Kairi Hojo would hold the title for a very short period, only
Hmm.
119 days. However, she did do a lot of damage in a good way within the 119 days. So, we talk about these long reigns and how much did they accomplish in those long reigns? Kyrie didn't have the long reign, but she did a lot. So she'd win the title, starting the highest on March 29th, 2015. She would defend it against Mayu Utami at Gold May 2015. She'd then go to a 30-minute time limit draw with Mako Satomura at Galaxy Stars, one of the all-time great matches in Stardom's history. She would then face Takumi Aroha for the belt, another very good match. And at Stardom X Stardom 2015, she would drop it to Mako Satomura in another excellent title match. And before I bring in Trent to talk about this reign, you should all go check out the Mako Satomura episodes earlier in the Stardom Road history. We talked about them a lot back in a few months ago. Now I think it's probably last year, honestly.
Last year.
I wish I had the episode numbers. You could just see, the beauty is if you subscribe, you can just scroll back and find them. Was it one or two? Was it one episode?
It was a one episode. Just type in Stardom
Yeah,
Road Miko Satomura and you'll find it, I'm sure.
yeah, that works too. But let's talk about Kairi Hojo. Like I said, accomplished a lot in very little time. Kairi was given the hardest, one of the hardest title reigns in Stardom's history. There's many hard title reigns, difficult title reigns. As we know, Micah is in the midst of one.
Mm.
But Kairi had to be the first world champion after Stardom took a massive hit, obviously, for the situation between Yoshiko and Aki Asakawa. Crowds were down. The mindset around Stardom was not high at the time, and the whole company really had to start pivoting. And like you said, this brings the three daughters of Stardom into the fold and really starts to kick off a long-term era of that being what Stardom is all about. And in terms of importance, the champion after her, of course, very important, as we have talked about in our previous episode. But this is a very important reign. It is picking yourselves up, right? And she has to be the one to pick them up and lead by example as the world champion. Of course, you know, it's not easy. It's not easy at all. The situation at the time and what she had to do. But I'm pretty confident in talking about this that it's one of the best short reigns you'll see. It accomplishes so much. So in terms of importance, where do you think Kyrie ranks so far?
Well, look, you could make an argument that this is the most important reign that we've covered so far. It's probably equal with Nanai Takahashi because obviously
Mm,
she had to set the standard for Stardom as things were moving forward. But like that was starting with a clean slate. Kyrie
mm.
didn't have the benefit of that. They was not starting with a clean slate here. Stardom had kind of built certain expectations, but now like the vibes were not immaculate coming into where they were. But Kyrie was the perfect person to put here because she was the consummate babyface. She was the ultimate good person here. And it was kind of what the fans wanted. It was very much a perfect timing thing. To me, it was like Hanan winning the Cinderella tournaments this year. Like just perfect timing, right person, right time, sort of the guy here. A lot of pressure on her, and I think she handled it really well. She stood up, she put on some really good matches, but she, yeah, really, decided to stand up. And the easy call would have been Io Shirai. She had the title for a long time. She'd proven herself as a top star, but they took the risk on Kyrie. They put obviously wasn't a long reign, but they took the risk to put her as champion here, and she stood up. And I think she did a very good job in a very difficult situation.
I think she did too. Like I said, she had within her reign of one of the great matches in Stardom's history. One that I feel
Mm,
like you look at that as like one of the matches and one of the shows that really picked Stardom up after all this. It wasn't long after, um, and I think again, what when comparing to what we've done so far, arguably the most important so far that we've talked about. Um,
mm,
in terms of match quality, she checked all those boxes. Every if you want to watch every match of this reign, you're not going to be left upset. I'm going to tell
mm.
you that
Yeah.
right now. It's a very good reign. One of the most, I think, top to bottom great reigns in terms of match quality. Everyone's opinions will range on each match, but when you have the stellar Mako matches, you have a great match when Mayu steps into the world title picture.
Mhm.
You have the match where she beats Io for the title, and you have one of Takumi's best Stardom matches. It's a win in terms of match quality.
Not a weak match here, and some legitimate all-time matches. Like it's
Yeah,
we've talked about like the Nanai match. There was sort of some really good matches, and then a couple which were on the upper echelon, but this kind of leapfrog from upper echelon into all-time levels with the Miko Satomura matches. So it delivers on both fronts here. Yeah, no complaints on the match quality front. The one benefit here is because it's a short reign, there's less chances for the not the duds,
sure.
but the weaker
But
matches to come through here. But you can only wrestle what's put in front of you, and she has a lot of
right.
matches considering how long the reign goes for, as you mentioned.
Well, yeah. Think of where the roster is at this time. You lose two top
Mm,
stars for obvious.
yep.
Well, three. Nanai also left.
Yeah.
Um, obviously. So you lose some important stars, and you watch Mayu climb up to that spot finally. You see Takumi fit into the role this time. The first
Mm,
time when she fought with Io, I don't know if it necessarily felt like that. It was part of her getting there. This time she was like, okay, this makes sense. This works.
mm.
And then, of course, you have Mako Satomura twice. Who, hello, Mako
A real
Satomura.
prove yourself match for the young up and comer.
Yeah, free Kairi Hojo. That was that first one, the 30-minute draw, is as much of a prove your champion that brings us a champion aura.
Mm.
Prove that you should be World of Stardom champion right now, right here, right now, when we need you. And again, she didn't have the reign for a long time, but by the end, Kairi felt like a superstar.
It's a tough one because she's playing the underdog role.
Yes.
Yeah, obviously, like she goes in against Miko Satomura, and the whole point is that she's not really ready in
Mhm.
that situation. And so it's
Yep.
difficult to have champion aura in that
Sure.
situation. Um, so like she loses points here when you look at like some
She
of the
does.
other champions that will come. But like she does a good job in terms of like being an underdog champion that people want to get behind and people want to believe in. And if you're not going to exude final boss, I'm ready to dominate this company energy, the best thing you can do from there is to be that underdog champion that people want to get behind and believe in. And she
Mhm.
executes that well.
It's a different persona to be as world champion. It's one that I think the Wonder Stardom title captures a lot more.
Mm,
The
mm,
underdog champion. The world is very different in that case.
yeah.
But Kyrie brought it. I think Kyrie did again as good a job as you could do in this situation with her expertise. Let's talk about impact. Pretty big impact in terms of champion at the time. I don't. So when you talk to people, I think about best, greatest World of Stardom champions. I don't think you hear. I think okay, depends which person you talk to. If you just talk to like a WWE fan that knows Kairi Sane's name, they're gonna just automatically assume. But if you talk to people that have followed Stardom, I don't think Kairi's coming out of their mouth first, second, third, fourth, fifth.
No.
Truthfully, so that is part of the impact. But I will give her credit for impact in terms of stepping up,
Mhm.
stepping into this role. And while she in some ways you could argue was a champion to kick it over to Mako, it's still an impact that is remembered. You helped us reestablish. You helped us,
Yeah.
you know, start to bring people back in, start to put Stardom back on the map after the horrific event that, of course, happened with this title on the line, mind you. So I think in
Mm.
that case, she does have a good impact. It's not a top tier all timer impact because, we talk about who does she drop it to? And rather than necessarily putting someone big over, she puts someone over that we believe is a major part of Stardom bouncing back.
Yeah.
And I think that's both a good impact and maybe you could argue hurts her a little in terms of just like herself as a champion, because it's like, well, we're gonna actually go with her now to reset ourselves. But it's a good impact.
Everything about this reign has high levels of immediate impact.
Mm,
It just has very little lasting legacy to both her and Stardom. It's very important to the immediate aftermath of everything that goes on. If you don't have Kairi doing what she does, Stardom really struggles. You
hmm
need that short reign to give Miko the boost, to give her that final boss, and give the Freedom versus Miko the story. All of that is so crucial to what happens in 2015. But what goes on from 2016 onwards, it's almost kind of forgotten about because Kyrie
hmm
becomes far more important to the white belt. Her
Yes.
kind of run with the red belt kind of doesn't get forgotten, but it becomes like a footnote in her story, in the red belt story, in the Three Daughters of Stardom story. And then when you kind of look back at the long term history of Stardom, it's not really discussed. And a lot of that is probably to do with the reign length. But it is very much like this reign is kind of a footnote in the long term story of Stardom. So impact, very important in the short term. It does take some pretty big hits in the long term for Stardom, especially when you look at some of the reigns. Like it's a the impact is shorter compared to Nanaya's reign. I think it's probably shorter compared to Io's first reign, and looking at a lot of the other ones coming up, it does take a hit for me in terms of impact. But
Uh,
it's the weakest category for it, but I do think it's a lot stronger in the other categories that lifts it up.
Yeah. And then length, of course, is shorter, but she accomplishes a lot within
Yeah.
the reign itself.
I'm not penalizing it too much
No.
here.
So I promise I'll take the next one first. But I'll let you start our placement here for Kyrie Hojo
Yep.
as World of Stardom Champion.
So it is going to be funny with everything we've said. Um, I'm putting this in the B tier. I think, yeah, the impact hurts it, and the length keeps it from being an A tier reign for me.
Mm-hmm.
In my original mock draft, I had it as a C tier, but talking about its importance in terms of the match quality being so consistent, and how like what it did in terms of Kyrie's character and what she did in stepping up, I do actually think it probably does lift up from a high C tier to
I
maybe
think
just on that edge of B.
I think it has to comfortably be in B. I think the length for people might hurt it because it's not long.
Mm,
But when
mm,
you have four total defenses, when you have the matches she had, when you follow the events that happened, there's so much going on there that she was able to get into that conversation for me with the Io and Nanai part. And I think that's an accomplishment for what she did in such a short time. Um, there's a lot that hurts this, right? But there's a lot that helps this too. And it's
mm.
having to, take the ball and take charge in a way when being an underdog champion, when facing someone like a Mako Satomura and Io Shirai, who are obviously like bigger stars at this time, but it's okay, we're going to establish you. And I think that's very important
Mm.
in terms of, for Stardom's history as well. So I think B was where I was going to go. Um, I was going to go behind Nanai just because of
Yeah,
Nanai's
yeah.
overall reign, length, importance. But I will say Kyrie's at least like who she dropped it to is more important. Um, but she does get hurt in terms of our 5 levels. While she does hit high for a lot of reasons, it's hard to beat those two, but I do feel comfortable with that. What happened, Trent? You said there was no Bs. We only have 3 Bs and 2 Ds.
If this reign had happened at any other point in Stardom history, it's a C tier. Um, but
But it didn't.
it's
So
no,
ha.
no.
All right, let's get to the next reign.
I'm
We're an
just gonna
hour in.
rank every reign is gonna be B tier from here on in,
Here's the
just
thing.
to
We're an
screw
hour
with the
and we have
algorithm.
so many world champions left. So we gotta dive in, right?
Yeah.
Ego Satomura. We have had an entire episode about this. So we're gonna keep this short and quick. Go check out that episode talking about Mako's World of Stardom title reign. Impact goes without saying.
Mm,
It helps establishes the freedom. It helps reassure Stardom moving forward again,
yeah.
following the incident, because this is still very much part of that.
Mm,
Putting someone as legendary as Mako on top helped them a lot. And she wrestles Kyrie twice, obviously, once in a 30-minute draw, then fights her to win the belt. She then fights Mayu Utami in a match we go deep into detail on that show.
squash match and a title of all time.
It's a mauling, really. It's 11 minutes, 29 seconds, squash type match, but it's to tell the story of this reign. For
Mm,
ultimately when she drops the belt 2-1 Io Shirai year in Climax 2015. I do want to give the stats, of course, 150 days as champion. Obviously not a member of the Stardom roster. So an outsider champion here. Just one successful defense. Um, but very important nonetheless.
this is
So
a difficult reign to rate
yeah,
because
well,
there's nothing inherently wrong with it. It serves a very important function. All the matches are really good, if not, match of the year caliber. She ticks all the boxes in terms of final boss energy. One of the best examples of final boss energy you can get. Um, but in
as
saying
WWE
that, like,
calls her, she was the final boss.
yeah, and I mean, she earned that moniker. Um, my biggest issue with this reign is that it is a transitional championship reign.
It
Like, it
is.
doesn't feel it, but it's a transitional story reign.
Yeah.
It's basically getting the championship from one Freedom member to the other, with the story being they need to band together, and Io needs to learn the power of her teammates' moves so she can use them like some fusion dance in order to beat the outsider, and that the true power of friendship will prevail. Um, Now, it's a fantastic story. I love it. It is one of my favorite stories in Stardom, but it does make this reign, like, for all the boxes that it ticks, it's not a massive reign in any real respect.
It's tough. It's really tough because we have an entire episode on it because of how important it was.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
importance, it's through the freaking roof in terms of importance. Match quality, I mean, you have the very interesting squash, but you have one of the greatest matches in Stardom history as the final match. You have the great
Mm,
match with Kyrie to start it. Champion aura, I mean, Mako screams world champion.
yeah,
It's like
yeah.
final boss, like you said. Impact, a very important impact as well.
Mm,
You can't fight this one. It's short, it doesn't do a lot, but it's very important. It's very important. You put over Freedom in the end. You
yeah.
really start the Freedom era through this reign, right? And it's to get to and up. We want to talk about when we talk about Impact. Who's she putting over? She is putting over Io Shirai, who is within her reign, putting Stardom not only back on the map. Stardom is a force to be reckoned with once Io retakes over. Somehow, after everything that happened, earlier that we were talking about. That's what Mako's reign sets up. It's very tough because it's 3 matches. It's 3. I mean, there's more matches obviously within it, but 3 title matches.
But yeah, it's three title matches. Like
I
this kind of
can't.
feels like it's going against the title length. You know, like I know that's the
It has
weakest
days,
ranking.
but like whatever.
Mm, mm,
I can't go. I can't go low. I'll tell you that.
yeah.
It's so important. We have an entire episode on this. If you want to hear more about the Mako Satomura title reign, go check it out. And just like what we've been talking about with the first 5, each
Mm,
level, she checks off every single one except for length.
yeah.
Who and length, even so, like if you care, great, she had 150 days, whatever.
So is it A then?
I think in low A to start.
Yeah.
Like I can't fight it. The quality's
Mm,
there, the importance there, the impact's there, the aura's there. It's all there.
yeah.
It's all there. For a 3-match title reign, in retrospect, it's all there.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it makes sense and it doesn't make sense. But like when you look at the category how we're ranking this, I can't argue with that ranking. Like
Mm-hmm.
it ticks the boxes too well to be lower than A.
It does. We finally, and if we had another B, I would have had to laugh at you. So we don't want that.
I was not putting it in B.
But let's dive into, of course, Io Shirai's second reign
Mm,
as
mm,
champion. 546 days. Of course, the record for defenses. 14 successful title defenses as world champion. Still the record to this day. God, if someone breaks it, that's not. I don't know who should be breaking that anymore. Uh it is. It isn't for many people the top reign in the history of not just Stardom, or not just this title, but Stardom as a whole.
mm, mm.
Importance goes without saying. It goes without saying. You know,
Yeah.
you're on the heels. Of course, Mako helped turn things around, and by the time she is dropping this title, Stardom had grown to a point where she could leave because Stardom had grown. She had grown. Kyrie grew. Like so much grew in these 2. It's 1 year, but so much had grown from 2016 to the middle of 2017. Um, Importance is through the roof. It's undeniable. I do think there are more important title reigns still to go in the history. But in terms of importance, it does hit the marker. It
Mm.
helps bring Stardom to huge relevancy. And, you know, many people know Stardom because of this title reign, truthfully. There we go. See, we need real time, real life reaction. So Trent, give it to us.
Yeah, look, this is the period I came into Stardom, and you know, I think one of the ways we sort of talk about champions and you know, sort of establishing importance. You know, people talk about who's your champion. You know, when you think about you know the WWE champion, who do you picture with the title? And you know,
Mm-hmm.
when you envision the World of Stardom champion, who do you see with the red belt? For me, it's Io Shirai. And I don't see the first reign, I see this version of Io Shirai. I see Io with the second run. This is the version of Io Shirai. This is the version of the World of Stardom Championship. Yeah, because not only because she was the champion when I came in, but she was
Mm-hmm.
the champion after I'd been watching Stardom for about a year, and she
Yeah.
changed gimmicks while she was champion, and like there's multiple versions of her through this run, and that's like kind of the secret to the success of this run. Because after 500 plus days, like you can kind of get bored of the reign, like especially because we've talked about it. Io Shirai, she has a style, like
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Io Shirai Kurikan Hall title defense, you know how that match is going. Like you can envision it in your head. You know the spots. You know the flow of the match. You can envision it. But
Yeah.
like by changing up her character and the gimmick and incorporating Queen's Quest towards the end there, it comes at just the right time to keep it fresh. It gives
Yeah.
her a bit of a character boost. It changes things up, and it really keeps that sort of train chugging through and kept her interesting. And damn if she just isn't the coolest person in the world around that time. Like, I was a Mayu person from the moment I stepped into my Stardom fandom. Believe it or not, I'm still a Mayu person. But I couldn't help but step back and go, look, Mayu's my favorite. But damn if Io Shirai isn't just the best wrestler in the world that I've ever seen. And she just proved it day in, day out. Now, you look at the reign that she had, were they all absolute bangers? No, there's some weaker matches in there. Again,
Mm,
like a reign that long, they're not all going to be, 5-star classics. But there's just so many great matches. She's in peak form, and she exudes, as we're talking about, that top star, best wrestler in the world energy. Coming off that Miko Satomura run, it's just executed to perfection. This
mhm,
is an all-time run from an all-time wrestler.
mhm.
There's a reason why people talk about this as one of the best runs in terms of championships.
Uh, Io Io's a very special wrestler, obviously. Goes without saying. Everywhere she's been, she's had success. She's been at the highest level everywhere she's been. And you look at this reign and you look at, yes, there, like you said, there are some matches that are like whatever. Pretty cool alpha female came back for this reign, by the way.
Hmm.
Just a nice historic moment for that. But you have the trilogy that we talked about last episode. Go check it out. Io Shirai vs. Mayu Utami. You have the trilogy. That alone delivers for you in match quality. I'm going to say it simple. I don't think we need to go through every single rating here. She checks every single box in every single way. She's got the match quality, she's got the lane, she's got the aura, and then some.
Mm,
It's every box is checked here.
yeah.
Like you said, there are some matches that maybe don't hit. Maybe in terms of importance, she's not the most important World of Stardom champion in history, but still, even so, like in terms, sorry, let me rephrase. It's not the most important reign in Stardom history,
Mm,
but it's still one of them.
yeah.
It's like
It comes
she's
at a very
just
important boom period for Stardom. A lot of people come in around this time, both domestically and internationally. Like, I'm not the only person who came into Stardom around this time because of EO.
mm,
Seeing gifs on the internet going, wait, what the hell is this? And seeing Io Shirai pull off incredible stuff and going, wait, women's wrestling can do this? Hang
yeah.
on, wait, what? And then becoming enamored with just how good these women were. It wasn't just Io, but she was a big part of it. And then you see what she's capable of and the way she carries herself as champion, and wins you over.
In this reign, she had comfortably been discussion as best wrestler in the world.
Mm,
That alone, I think if you're in the discussion or if you are considered by anyone as the best in the world, you probably should be a Hall of Famer in any book, truthfully. Like, if you are the best in the world at your craft, professional wrestling, you are a Hall of Fame caliber talent. That's what she was within this reign. Like you said, so many stories. So you have the stories. We should have put stories in here. Like, is there a story? I guess we'll count that as impact. Do
mm,
you tell a story? She tells the most important story in Stardom's history in this reign. The Mayu Io story. We talked about it again ad nauseum last show. That was the entire point.
and puts her over
I'm
at the end.
Trent, I'm not even gonna ask you. It's S tier and it's
Not
nothing less.
B?
No,
Not B?
no, no. It is there's a few reigns that I'm pretty confident will be S tier by the end of this. This was number one in terms of the order. I was like, all right,
Yeah.
I know where this is going. Everything else, there's some that's up for debate. I know where this one was going. It was
Yeah,
never
no, this was like the first one that I was like absolutely guaranteed.
yeah.
We're not debating this one. This was going easy S tier.
So let's get into, of course, the following
Tony
ring.
Storm. Let's cover Tony Storm's first reign.
So, of course, Mayu Utani would defeat Io Shirai to become the first ever double champion holding the world. I almost
Mm,
said only, but that was ruined. Um, she would become the first ever double champion holding the Wonder and World of Stardom Championships. She would get the company put on her back. Of course, Kyrie was leaving for the Mae Young Classic. At the time, Io Shirai was also leaving for WWE. Of course, she would stay another year due to, um, you know, medicals and whatnot. But this was everything being put on the back of Mayu Iwatani as champion. She has the great match with Io to win the belt. She defends the title against Yoko Bito at Stardom X Stardom in a very solid match. She then, of course, defended in a great match against Kagetsu, an all-time legendary rivalry in Stardom's history, something we will get
mm.
to their rivalry somewhere down the line as well. And then, of course, all comes to a screeching halt when Mayu Iwatani faces Tony Storm for the World of Stardom Championship and gets injured. 2 minutes and 20 seconds into the match, making Tony Storm the new World of Stardom Champion, ending the reign at 95 days. So,
Aussie, Aussie, Aussie. Oi, oi, oi.
so we get into the levels here. Everything is hurt due to it not ending when it was supposed to. People will love to bring up that Tony Storm was a World of Stardom champion. They love to do it. I hear it every freaking day. It wasn't supposed to happen. So I don't want to hear it. At least at this point, it wasn't supposed to happen. Maybe some other day, but not here. And it's very unfortunate. And it hurts, obviously, the reign of Mayu. Thank God she'd get another. Um,
Thankfully,
so
that one wasn't affected by anything either.
important at the time, it could have been the most important because she was taking
Mm,
over at a time where 2/3 of the top three were leaving.
yeah,
But she got injured, so that's hurt. In terms of
mm,
match quality, you have the Big Io match, obviously great. You have
yeah.
the Kagetsu match, great. You have the Yoko match, very solid match.
Mm,
Then it ends in injury, so it's nothing. Champion aura. You never got to fully. I mean, she was double champion, so that was cool. Not for long though. It ended very
no,
quickly. Very ended very quickly.
yeah,
We never got to see what Mayu as world champion truly felt like within this reign. It just
yeah.
ended again too soon. Impact. There's not much of an impact besides the title win. Again, becoming double champion and, marking what was supposed to be a new era of Stardom. And length, it's not there. I'm telling you now, I am not putting it in D, and I will not put it in D.
Really?
Yes, because there's another reign that ends in injury that is far, somehow to me, even worse. But I will debate, and we can, of course, put it in D if you want to. It's not. I'm going to start with low C. D makes a lot of sense because how it ends. There's also
Yeah,
this part of there shouldn't have, like, injury makes it hard. It's like
yeah.
you almost
Obviously,
don't
like
want
it's
to rank injured people.
mm, mm, mm. It's tough because obviously, yeah, it's not fair the way the reign ends. Given the quality of several of the matches, the Io match and the Kagetsu match specifically
Yeah,
definitely boosted. Why I would lean towards it, unfortunately, getting D comes through a couple of features. Partly the length of the reign does hurt it here because it just never gets going. Her championship aura, despite being double champion during this era, doesn't really shine either. And part of that is unfortunately the booking during this period because they do an awkward thing where like Yoko Bito challenges for the red belt. She loses that challenge. Then she challenges for the white belt. The day before the
Yeah.
red belt challenge, Yoko wins the white belt after losing the red belt challenge, and it's really convoluted. And like
Yeah.
Mayu, despite beating the two daughters of Stardom, still kind of feels slightly underdoggy during this period. So I don't feel like, and it's obviously Mayu is an ultimate underdog in a lot of ways during this period still, but I don't think the intention quite translated during this period. Crowning the true, the ultimate icon of Stardom here.
Yeah.
I don't think it worked. I'm not sure whether like Rossi didn't fully envision what he wanted Mayu to be at this point, or whether the whole point was she beats Mayu, but beats Io, but the true vision of what Mayu was to become was going to be a 8-month long journey through this point that
Right.
obviously never gets realized. So, or it doesn't really get hit. Impact to me, like obviously the match where she wins, massive high. Like it's a massive high. But that's all this reign has going for it. Outside of like, oh, she carries the moment from Nagoya, the injury, through to the second reign. So Impact is really just a one moment thing. I don't see anything there beyond 1.5 matches because it's not the best EO match that she has during this period. And it's not even the best Kagetsu match she has coming up. She has better
I
Kagetsu
wouldn't
matches.
call it 1.5 matches. It's still regarded as the great matches in Stardom history.
Yeah, but I think it's slightly overrated. It's
Okay,
notably
but
weaker
this isn't
than the
just
other two
us. I'm
matches.
thinking overall.
Yeah,
It's one of the most memorable
yeah,
matches as well. In Stardom.
yeah. I,
Either way, I
I think
understand
I
the
think
here. Like the
yeah.
matches have
To
nothing to do
me,
with.
if we're giving it C, I think it's our bias for Mayu shining through
Buddy,
a bit
I just
too
wanted
strong.
you to say D and not me. I said C. I defended Mayu more than you did. That's what I heard on this show. You're welcome, everybody. So Trent wins. Trent gets Mayu and D, but she's above the other two because I'm
Yeah,
not obvious
of
reasons.
course.
Good job,
And
Trent.
she's going to be at top of D when this is all said and done.
The toughest one for me to get through. At least now it's over. We still have so many more to go. All right, Tony Storm. This reign stunk. To be honest, obviously she was supposed to win the title, but
And not her fault.
her first defense was a month later in SWA World of Stardom title double title match against Bea Priestley.
Not in Japan.
Not in Japan, in Taiwan. Went 10 minutes. Then she defended at Rise 6 against Mercedes Martinez. Then finally defended against Mayu in a return match that went all of 13 minutes. And then lost the belt to Gegetsu.
Yeah.
Held the belt for 258 days.
Yeah.
Accomplished very little.
This is probably the most frustrating period that I can recall as a Stardom fan surrounding the red belt. And there's been some frustrating times. And look, putting it out there, I don't blame Tony Storm for this period, despite the fact there was a lot of unfair hatred directed at Tony during this time. She wasn't booking her championship reign here, and yeah, she was champion just during this period. There were periods where she was in Stardom during this time, and she wasn't being booked to defend the title.
Yeah.
So, I don't know whether there was contractual clauses where she wasn't allowed to lose, or whether Rossi liked her being champion. We don't know what was going on there, but for whatever reason, like she held the belt for as long as she did, barely defended it, and didn't lose until the Kagetsu match. It was just a really awkward period. They had Io Shirai as the white belt champion during this time. That became the de facto top championship. Um, and that was being defended against a lot of foreigners. It was a rough time to be a fan, honestly. It got better. um, yeah, the matches that she was having as champion wasn't particularly great. she was, not to her level, not to her standard as a wrestler. She did feel like a top champion. Like she was a great wrestler during this time, highly touted. But she also, despite being a very accomplished young top star, didn't necessarily feel as big as she should have
Mm-hmm.
because she was never there. Like she would pop up every now and again as a top champion, but because she wasn't a fighting champion, I think that hurt her aura
Sure.
somewhat.
Yeah. Kind of. Yeah, I mean, if I look at importance, it wasn't important. It just wasn't. There's nothing I could say that this title reign accomplished in that reign. It hurt the company. It was a title reign that legitimately hurt the company. Match quality, not there.
Mm.
Nothing to grasp at. Starts, whatever. Defenses are pretty whatever. Championship aura, yes, Tony had an aura to her. I will give that to her. She
Yeah,
had won the
yeah.
Cinderella. She had won the 5-star. So there was an establishment of she's a big star when holding
Mm.
this belt. She's also doing WWE at the time. So she's pretty known. But still, it wasn't like she didn't feel like the world champion. We just said Io Shirai felt like the de facto world champion as
Mm.
Wonder. Impact, negative impact. Again, like there's such little better, and I know people love Tony Storm now. I get it. You love Tony Storm. You got to look at this title reign. Unlike I did at my use trying to defend her because that's what I do. You have to look at this title reign in terms of what it actually was, and it was an accident that led to a champion that wasn't around, and when she was around, wasn't doing all too much for the belt itself.
Mm.
The length, she had the length of the belt, but she didn't defend it all that much. By this time, they were defending a lot, and she only defended it 4 total times in 250 days.
Yeah. You noticed its absence when she wasn't there, and you noticed its absence when she was there and wasn't defending it. Um, I mean,
Yeah.
this is probably one of the most predictable positions. This is an easy D tier. Let's not beat around the bush.
Yeah, I can't even defend it. Like, you can't defend it for C because there's just so little it did.
Mm.
It was so bad. Like, there's not a word for it. Like, there's a reason when we talk about Kagetsu's reign now, that has so much importance because it was digging you out from what that reign created in
Yeah.
many ways, and as well as what we'll get to with the Io Shirai and so
Kind of
on.
behind Mayu.
Oh yeah, sorry, I meant to do that and I just left it there. Yeah, it was bad reign. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
in terms of length, to me, probably the worst long reign in
Mm, mm.
Stardom's history.
Yeah. If
250
it'd been
days
a
is a
short reign, people would have understood because of the
Mhm.
circumstances. But the problem was because it kept going, people were like, what are we doing here?
Now let's talk about a very important reign in Stardom's history.
Mm.
That is, of course, the reign of Kagetsu. A fantastic reign is that 329 days, defeated Tony Storm to win the title at Shining Stars 2018, would then defend the title against Viper at Stardom X Stardom 2018 in Osaka, which is pretty highly rated match, all things considered.
They worked really well together.
They did. Then you have the Kagetsu 4th anniversary match, having one of the great matches in Stardom history between Mayu and Kagetsu. That was Stardom X Stardom 2018 to be exact. Then you have the double title match between Kagetsu and Momo Watanabe, which ended up being a double KO. Big shock. There was not another double champion crowned at the time. Kagetsu would then defend against Nicole Savoy, which, eh,
The classic, we'll give a foreigner a bit of a shot
yeah,
here. I
yeah.
like Nicole Savoy, but
Hmm.
it was a bit of a, oh, okay, cool.
Then you have a pretty big story based title match between Kagetsu and Hana Kimura, a no count out, no
Mm.
disqualification match. This, of course, was Hana going on her own way at the time, leaving Oedo Tai, very very important match. At the 8th anniversary, Kietsu defends against Jungle Kiona in a great match. Big shock. Jungle Kiona lost. Sorry, I just had to. I couldn't. Oh, interesting. Trent, I noticed Jungle Kiona is not on this list. If we do a Wonder Star one, is she on that list? I'm sorry.
We're running long as it is, Scott. Do you want
sorry. I'm sorry. We always run long when we do the tier. It's fine. I expect 2 hours at the least. Then she has the great defense again. Kagetsu has the great defense against Hazuki.
Great match.
Yeah. Up until Hazuki's return, I think regarded for many as probably Hazuki's best singles match at least. Excellent match. Defends against Goya Kong. Again,
I'm not gonna pretend I remember that.
There's a classic trait to some World of Stardom title matches. And shout out to Io Shirai. Io Shirai had it, which was defending against the most random human being possible, which this time it was Goya Kong. I know some people actually do like that match. That was a Dream Slam 2019. But whatever. 11 minutes.
That's a classic trivia question. If you got that bonus points, name every Kagetsu challenger.
And then Kagetsu, of course, dropped the title to be Priestley in the end. So, couldn't all be perfect. But let's talk about it. Great reign for the artist formerly known as Kagetsu. Very important. And it starts with Io Shirai is finally gone, leaving this company, going to WWE. Well, I say finally gone. She was supposed to leave a year before. Didn't happen. Holds the Wonder Stardom title reign for a year. Then
one of the final moves was convincing Kagetsu not to leave.
Yes, very important. Kagetsu, of course, this reign is in many ways the reign that was never supposed to be. Thank God it happened. It's one of the great reigns in Stardom's history. Let's just we just went through that. There was many great matches in that. Importance through the roof. It's solidifying Stardom in an age without 2/3 of Freedom once and for all. Right? And you look at that Mayu match specifically as the we're gonna be okay match. That's the way I always. Every time I watch that, I watch it and I'm so much happiness because one, it's phenomenal, one of my favorite matches, but two, it really does say that it's like we're gonna be okay without Io. We're gonna live on, and that is what those two did at that time. Of course, Kagetsu at the top. That it's one of the more important reigns in Stardom's history for me.
It's a little bit of a low-key important reign. I think in 2024, it's easy to kind of forget what this reign was all about. You look back and say, Kagetsu was a fantastic wrestler, putting on great matches, leader of Oedo Tai. But when you look at the underpinning story behind it, was Kagetsu was basically looking at all of these young up-and-comers and going, I'm not sticking around forever. I already tried to retire once. My neck is wanting to break.
Yeah.
You guys need to lift up your game so I can retire. I'm going to test how good you guys are. And when I'm finally convinced you guys are ready, I'm piecing out. And so this whole reign was basically testing everyone. And you can see it through the challenges on this list.
Yeah.
Yes, there's some random sort of people popping up. But let's go through a lot of these names. So Mayu Iwatani, Momo Watanabe, Hana Kimura, Jungle Kiona, Hazuki. They're all people that are, you either are long-term staples for Stardom here in 2024, or were expected to be long-term staples in Stardom. That Kagetsu's basically giving trial runs and saying, prove that you are the next generation.
And having fantastic matches in all of those.
Absolutely.
Right? We talked about, not to go back, but when we talked about Io's first reign, we brought up that with the likes of Takumi and stuff.
Yeah.
This is the regenerated version of that, but to the extreme. Like you said, with no Io Shirai, we need to make new stars. Oh, let me have a fantastic match with Momo, who obviously Momo beat Io. Momo was made and then went on to have the
Yeah.
title for a year and so on. But have the match with Momo, have the match with Suzuki, Hana Kimura, Jungle Kiona. Those 4 matches you look at and you look at this reign, I think that alone, it's like this was so important. You set the stage for Stardom for the next how many ever years. Because they showed in the biggest spots against this world champion that they can be here. They can be at that level. I think you're absolutely right. It is arguably maybe the most underrated, important title reign in Stardom's history. Like the importance is very underappreciated.
Yeah. And look, Kagetsu is such a fantastic character. Like, it's a shame that we're moving further and further away from the era that Kagetsu was involved in, because it means people are moving further and further away from having witnessed it. The good thing is, most of that era is on Stardom World. Like, you miss some of the very early era, but that's pre, with the true face paint. That basically once Kagetsu took over as Oedo title leader, it's all on Stardom World. So as long as you've got the time and the commitment, you can go back and
Yeah.
watch all the best stuff. It's the best. There's
I
reason why
now
it's
want to do
called
an
Golden
episode
Era
on it.
Oedo
Thank
time.
you for asking.
We will do many episodes on it
I know.
because you can't cover it all in just one episode. Because I will talk too long about it. This literally, I came in at the perfect time to watch the
Yeah.
best of the best when it came to Oedo time. But like, Kagetsu was a very special wrestler and means so much to what lifted Stardom into the era that early Bushi Road era where everything was firing on all cylinders. A lot of that is because of the prep work that Kagetsu did, both in this World of Stardom Championship reign and sort of just on the outskirts of it, behind the scenes, sort of doing stuff around as
Training.
not
Yeah.
champion. Yeah. So in terms of ticking the boxes on this list, impact, very important, not necessarily S tier importance, but very important. Match quality, not necessarily S tier importance, but very important. Champion aura, she's probably one of the best heel champions you could possibly ask for.
I think the aura's S
Nice long
tier
reign.
easily.
Yeah, look, to me, she's one of the best characters wrestling's ever produced. You talk about building a wrestler from the ground up. Kagetsu is probably the finished product for me. Throw your Randy Ortons out. Kagetsu's perfect. Perfect character, perfect wrestling style. Everything just comes together perfectly. If I was rating in terms of this box in this tier list, I would be putting her in the very highest of A tiers. She's not quite S tier for me, just because I think, as great as a lot of the matches are, there are lulls in the championship reigns, and it doesn't reach the very pinnacle in terms of match quality, legacy. Because we're talking about it as being underrated. The most important reigns, the most important champions don't get underrated because they're undeniable.
Mm-hmm.
Because of that, I can't put her in the S tier as much as I love Kagetsu, but I would put her in high A.
If this was us ranking Stardom's, like if this was just the wrestlers themselves,
Easy S.
there's very few wrestlers you would put over Kagetsu in the history of Stardom. And this reign's a big reason why and how important it was. But, the way we've been discussing this episode, right? And like you said, there's some lulls, not Kagetsu's fault. Then there's the sticking the landing at the end. Sorry, dropping the belt to Bea Priestley, to me, wasn't the right move. We're talking about all these names. Hana, Jungle, Hazuki, Momo. And it's like, if you were putting
You're going to make
over
an
the
argument that Jungle Kiona should have won the red belt here?
God, no. But if you were putting over the next generation, I feel like that would have been a more fitting type winner. And I understand what they were trying to do with B, and we will talk about that. I get it. I do. That's the only thing that hurts any of Kagetsu's reign. It's still so important. It's still so great. It is the highest of A's. Another day, I would even argue low S, truthfully. But we've talked about a lot of reigns here. So it's like everything's in my mind. What's coming up's in my mind. So I'm very like S is the best of the best. This is just a step below. I'm in agreement with you. But mind you, A is as good as it gets too. There's a reason you have legends in A. It's Kagetsu and Mako Satomura. If we stopped there, it would be perfect. You know, it's like that's as good as it gets. But fantastic reign, obviously, and just want to give Kagetsu respect. Hope Yoshino's doing well out there, whatever he's up to. Um, always love getting to talk about Kagetsu. It's one of my favorite topics. Anytime it comes up on this show, we will get to many Kagetsu episodes.
We're holding back because we don't want to use our best episodes, and like we can't wait to talk
Which
about
is very
Kagetsu,
funny
but
because we have like 10 topics like that and we just keep
Mm.
pushing them back. Let's just, to be fair, current Stardom's kind of helping. Thank you. Making some things easier for us. But yeah, we do like to push it back. It gets to the big one, obviously, more of Mayu's career, Io's
Yeah,
career,
yeah,
Threedom,
yeah.
all these different things. Oedo Tai, 2019 as a whole, truthfully. I think that could
Mm.
just be an episode in its own. And the many things that go on there. There's so many episodes. So shout out to Kietsu.
That's why you got to subscribe to the Can Out Podcast Network so you don't miss all these great episodes that are still to come.
Great plug. Now, here's an episode we won't be doing. We'll not be doing an episode about Bea Priestley's World of Stardom title reign. Now, Bea Priestley had the title for
Hey, we might get
100.
desperate. Year 13 into this podcast.
Oh,
You had it here first. Year 13 into this podcast, we're covering B. Priestley's World of Stardom reign.
all right, that's an agreement. Bea Priestley. Bea Priestley. Oh boy. Oh boy. There's some ways to look at this. Now, listen, I don't think Bea Priestley has, truthfully, anywhere near the worst title reign. As you can see, you're looking at Toni Storm in terms of title reigns that have full length. She nailed that one. Bea Priestley has the right opponents within her reign.
Mm.
She has obviously beats Kagetsu for the title. Has
Yeah.
Suzuki, Konami, Momo Watanabe, Utami Hayashishita, Hana Kimura, and Mayu Iwatani. Now, it's funny when you talk to people. I talk to my friend Dylan sometimes about this. Gets his favorite wrestler of all time. And I always ask him about the part between Kagetsu and Mayu. He said, doesn't exist in my head. Doesn't exist. That World of Stardom title reign doesn't exist in my head. Well, it exists in ours because we gotta put it on the tier ranker. It's not that important. It's not. But it's fine. Like that's my like am I scrambling back to watch much of it? No. Does it have the right champion following it? Yes. So that's a check for B. Congratulations, you got a check. The match with Hana, great match. Great match.
I was in attendance.
I know you were.
Match of the
Great match.
night. Beta Risa versus Kagetsu.
Arguably, wrong winner.
Oh,
Sorry.
absolutely. Like the
Yeah.
crowd wanted Hana to win that match.
Yeah.
But
So you have that. You have Utami's big step up, which is something to note. You have the match with Momo in their history. It's fine. Again, a lot of these matches are they're not bad. They're just not great. Arguably not. You get it.
It's also hurt that during this time, the white belt champion is Arisa Hoshiki, who,
You're
outside
goddamn
of
right.
the aforementioned Kagetsu match that I mentioned, like she was putting on bigger and better matches at the same time that B was having these fine to good matches with the red
And
belt.
I'll argue, the one time wasn't because of B. It was because of Han.
Yeah, they worked really well together. They had the
They
right
did.
chemistry with each other.
But
It
I'm
was
saying
B
the
Priestley
crowd
is
too.
yeah, the crowd. It was the right mix of everything. B Priestley was someone who she needed the right opponent, and she could
Mhm.
have a really good match. And as she in 2019, she was still kind of, yeah, right day, right opponent. She could do well. Towards the very end of her Stardom run, it was less unpredictable, less hit and miss.
Yeah.
But by this point, it was still a little bit less consistent. Um, it was just the perfect storm in a lot of ways at this point. Yeah, this reign I think cops more flack than it deserves because people didn't really want to see B in this role. Fair enough, it was putting her in a position that she probably wasn't ready for. It was a little bit of a thank you reign for the work she'd been doing in Stardom. The women liked her in the locker room. It was kind of, hey, you've committed to us. You've been working hard. Let's see what you can do. That's not always the best reason to be a world champion in a promotion. But fair play, they gave it a shot. She gave it a shot. Did she have the aura? Not really. It's tough when you're being overshadowed by the white belt champion. And again, the white belt is not a secondary championship, but it's still you're being overshadowed by another champion. But it's not as bad as people say. There's some good matches here. Yeah, she does her best. It's a solid C tier reign. When you're looking at, she
Yeah.
definitely doesn't make B tier. She's not up to the level of those, but she puts on a competent reign
Yeah.
that goes for the length it's meant to, and she defends as you would expect her to. She gets a passing grade.
Here's the thing. Two of yeah, probably my two favorite B title matches come after the reign. When she's not champion, she's challenging other people for different titles. So I think that kind of tells you all you should know about
Yeah.
the title reign. It's fine. It's a fine C tier. I almost feel like we should have an F for two people. But we should have did like what people usually do with tier lists and make like this crazy ridiculous one. Like, you know,
Yeah.
whatever. But yeah, it was fine. You know, it's the definition of a C reign, really.
She was above her level. She did well considering where she was at.
Yeah. She won't
She
be
probably
alone.
shouldn't have been there.
Don't worry.
No,
She
no,
won't
no,
be alone.
no,
I am looking directly at someone for that one. Um
no.
anyways, let's talk
She
about
won't be joined immediately. Let's put it that way.
no. Someone it's time someone else has joined though. And that is of course, let's talk about my Utami's second reign. I don't think there is a more important title reign in Stardom's history. You know what? I'm gonna scratch that. I know there isn't a more important title reign in Stardom's history. Because what everyone needs to understand is what happens within this reign. Stardom takes a hit, and then another hit, and then another hit, and then another hit. So obviously, Kagetsu's retiring, Hazuki's retiring, the pandemic starts, Arisa Shiki has to retire, and Hana Kimura passes away.
It has to have occurred over what, 2 years?
What?
That has to have occurred over like 2, 3 years,
Oh,
right? All that
no.
stuff.
Oh, I see your point. It happened over what? 4 months? Is that high?
4 months and a little bit of change.
Yeah, yeah. This is the hardest time in history to be, you know, from experience. Many people could talk about this one from experience, right? We couldn't talk about the Yoshiko one from experience. We can talk about
Yeah.
this one from experience. A lot of people fell out of Stardom during this time for one reason or another. Reasons we just listed. Almost you could pinpoint any of them. There's a reason people fell out. 2020 was tough. It's a tough year to watch. Go into clap crowds, so much, just kind of hanging over the promotion because of retirements, of course, Hana's passing. There was one thing bright about this time. That, of course, was Mayu Utami as World of Stardom Champion. You couldn't have had a more perfect champion at this time. You had great matches. You had the right person winning. You put someone over to take over in the end. Obviously, the reign, for what people that want to know, lasted 377 days. Obviously, the defenses are only at 5 successful defenses, 6 total, because of the stoppage for a while due to COVID and other events. 2020, no one ever wants to relive that year in wrestling ever again, or that year period in life, not just wrestling. But bless Mayu with this reign. Truly, truly. Obviously wins it from B, has a great title defense at the year-end climax against Kagetsu. One of their great matches. Their final big-time match before Kagetsu retires, of course. Defends against Momo Watanabe at the 9th anniversary in a great match. Defends against Jungle Kiona in a great match. Hey, listen, I keep giving Jungle Kiona credit. Has a big match with Shuri. Has the big title defense against Takumi Iroha. Then, of course, loses the belt to Utami Hayashishita. What isn't remembered in this title reign is the other. Like, when we go through title reigns, statistically, the first Takumi match isn't on here because it wasn't for the belt. But damn it, was that important.
Damn, it was meant to be a title match.
Yes, it was. Of course, if you don't know, Saori was supposed to be that match. And then Saori gets signed by WWE. Other reasons, she's got to pull out of the match. Takumi fills in last second. They go no title match, and they create an incredible story where Takumi's the one that pins the world champion in the middle of the ring in one of my favorite matches, period. Fantastic. One of the best matches all year. Then they run it back later that year in another fantastic match where Mayu gets the win. Man, Takumi was so good before that knee injury. Like, different level good. Sorry, that's not the conversation here. I know we have levels to this. Importance as high as can be. S tier. Match quality. Pretty S tier for me personally.
Yeah.
And we talked about it with the first reign. Champion aura. This was when Mayu was the icon of Stardom. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Who is the face of this company? It's Mayu Utami. You felt it every bit of this reign. In the toughest of times. When you needed it most, who'd you have? You had Mayu Iwatani. Impact. You had a reign again, starting off the Bushi Road era. Really, like, this is when it's in full effect, and you need to get to the next step, which was Utami Hayashishita. You had the perfect person taking the belt from her. Maybe you didn't feel it at the time, which we'll get to, but it ended up being the right choice. And then length, you had it a year. Very good length. In terms of when they were competing, she had title matches. Trent, I know I haven't let you talk much, so I'm going to let you. I'm just telling you, it's S tier, and I won't hear otherwise. Go ahead.
So this is a solid B tier reign. I think we can all agree on that. This is. I mean, I wrote an article on Razura very recently where I literally, the title of the article was called Mayu Iwatani, the most important champion, and it's talking specifically about this reign. It was a reign of two halves. She was put as the champion, basically the Bushiroad assigned champion. And I think it was a very clear message from Bushiroad. We're taking over, and there's going to be a lot of changes, But don't worry, guys, because the one thing that won't change is the face of the company. All these things are changing. We're bringing all these marketing, new faces and stuff. But the champion, the top face of this company, is the person that you've always been behind, Mayu Iwatani. She puts on banger after banger after banger in front of a Korakuen Hall crowd that is just going bonkers. There's literally no more room in Korakuen Hall through January and February here. Like you, we've not seen Korakuen Hall like this before or since for Stardom. We haven't. And then the pandemic hits, completely changes the face of Stardom. Everything changes. The Reign has to do a complete 180, and the way she has to carry herself has to change completely. Like, instead of putting on these amazing matches against top tier wrestlers in front of a crowd that's going crazy, and you're pushing them out, you're stopping them from coming in the door. You're now having to convince them to come out in an environment where people don't want to leave their houses. Especially I know a lot of people in, say, in America and stuff during this time, they were desperate to get out of their houses. They didn't want to wear masks and stuff. They were feeling constrained by government restrictions. Japan was a bit different. Like, they were more inclined to listen to the government. They didn't want to leave their house. They, didn't want to go to events. Like, it's a bit of a different vibe, especially around this time. So to convince them to go to a wrestling show when they could just watch it on television and stuff. Very, very difficult. So Mai had the arduous task as the top champion and one of the only, recognized and established stars, convincing him to come through the door and watch her wrestle. Oh, but by the way, you can't actually cheer. You can just clap. Incredibly difficult job. I stand by my claim that this was the most important champion and championship reign. There's not a bad match in this reign. The weakest match is probably the B Priestley match to win the title. A very good match. It's partly to do with the quality of the opponent, but there's not a weak match in this championship reign. There's no drop in quality here. The only thing you would maybe knock is championship aura. Like, she's the icon, she's the top thing. I would say Io Shirai still has her slightly beat just because Io during 2016 and 2017 is just on that completely other level. And Mayu Iwatani's still kind of carrying herself as not an underdog, but she just doesn't have that same level of aura.
Mayu's Mayu.
Yeah, Mayu's not that kind of person. That's not what she's about. So Io has a slightly beat on that. And Impact is probably about even. Mayu's reign is more important than Io's for the reasons we've stated. Impact, I would say, is about the same because they're doing different things. So whether you would put Mayu ahead of Io or not, I say comes down to personal opinion. Knowing us and knowing our preferences, I think we're probably putting Mayu ahead of Io. But if people listening prefer Io's reign, I would completely understand that.
Of course, we're putting Mayu ahead of Io. Come on. I knew that coming into this show. There was two things I knew. It was that. S. That's it. Didn't think of anything else. That is the best of the best in the history of that title. Right there. And it's the correct way for it to be, in my opinion. Just incredible reigns in very different circumstances. Just an incredible look back at that Mayu reign and all that she did in, again, the toughest of times. And that brought us to, of course, one Utami Hayashishita. So let's get
I will just quickly say before we get on to Utami, sorry to interrupt there. You couldn't have put them in the reverse spots. If you asked Mayu to do what Io did during that time period in that championship reign, it wouldn't have worked. Likewise, I don't think you can ask Io to do what Mayu did, especially in the back half of that reign, and it would not have worked anywhere near as well because you needed the unique babyface underdog property of a Mayu Iwatani, I think, to make that type of champion work. And Io's almost too good. Like, it would have still, like, she still would have drawn people in, but you needed someone that they genuinely wanted to get behind and see succeed. And Io doesn't do that, especially by that point. like Mayu does. So if you tried to swap those reigns around and fill each other's niche, they both lose out a little bit. Right
Yeah,
people, right time.
absolutely. Absolutely. It's certain situations where you can't they are the right people at the right time. It's what both of them were born for. Like it's the exact role you would look for them to do. It's why both of them are obviously such special professional wrestlers. It's why they go down as the two greatest in Stardom's history. It's because they fit different categories, right? They're it's not fair to compare them, and everyone will always compare these two and
Of
what
course.
they've done in their careers and so on and so forth. But to me, the way I will always look at it is they were so different, but when they came together they were so perfect together, and that's why they stand at the top. So let's
Yes.
talk about Utami Hayashishita. Many at the time thought this would be Tommy's first reign of multiple with the World of Stardom Championship.
Mm.
We were wrong. Um, Probably. I mean, you never know what can happen, but I feel
Yeah.
this was it. This was it. And the conversation I think we often have about Utami at this time is she was far from a finished product, especially when she won the belt. You watch her mature within the reign, right? You watch her grow and get better and better. And it's going to be my favorite conversation to have because the importance of this reign speaks for itself. This is again Booster Road era. You were taking over as the new top star in this company. Can you achieve? Can you reach the level they need you to reach? So, where do you want to go with this? Because again, there's two tails to this. We've done this episode.
Yes.
Two of
Recently,
them. We've done two of them. So I'll let you take the lead on this one.
this is a very interesting conversation because there's a few different angles to approach it, as you're kind of hinting at. So I think the first thing, and they all kind of tie together, and it's all about Utami's progression because when she wins this championship, she is not the finished product. And through the first half of this reign, it's all about kind of trying to prove yourself as a champion, which when we're talking about aura, yes, she's a prodigal talent. Yes, you can believe her as a top champion, but she's chasing that impression. She's chasing that ability to be perceived as a top champion. So she's kind
Mhm.
of hurt in that respect.
Yeah.
In terms of impact, she's not main eventing some of these matches. She's
Right.
losing out to the white belt. She's losing out to the tag titles. And then she goes and has a match that completely changes the landscape of Joshi wrestling as it's
Yeah.
perceived in Western culture.
Yeah.
Literally, like maybe the single most important Joshi match in terms of Western demographics. And so the second half of her reign then becomes almost chasing that dragon. Can she repeat that? Can she live up to what she's established there? Which means she's carrying a certain aura, which means she's had a certain impact. What that means is that this reign was very important. She's had very important matches. It's a reign that goes on for over a year, so it carries the length.
Packed with
But it's
defenses, by the way. Packed
Yeah,
with
yeah,
defenses.
and consistent defenses. But it's a reign that's evolving. It's not a
Yeah.
stagnant reign, and that's both good and bad
Hmm.
because there's positives to that, but it also means there's negatives. There's
Yeah.
the first match with Micah, which is a let's be honest, it's a slog to get through. There's
Mhm.
the Natsukatora match, which I don't think we hold against it because it's an injury, but it's there. There's the Takumi Iroha match, which we talked about, which is good, but it's definitely not great, and it's hurt by basically chasing a previous match. It's trying to replicate what they did in the first Shuri match, and it can't match that. But there's a lot of good in this reign as well, and I think we basically came to the conclusion after 2 episodes prior. This is a fantastic reign that by the end of it does so much for Stardom and does so much for Utami.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to look at this, and I think you really nailed it. It's that the first few months, there's a lot of ways to look at it, right? She's not main eventing. She doesn't main event the
Mm,
biggest show of the year. You could argue what the biggest show of that year is. I would say it was still All Star Dream Cinderella.
it
So
is.
the Paul and Budokan, gigantic show. Obviously, Stardom Dream
Yeah.
Queendom is the one that's continuing on and so forth. But that was the biggest show. She's not main eventing. Then she doesn't main event because of a tag match. Like you said, the first Micah match was, it's fine, whatever. Um, but but that Shuri match alone makes it important. Raises
Mm,
Stardom stock, brings them to a level of eyes that they've never had before. And they tell the incredible story of her and Shuri from there on. And within this, you watch her gain the championship aura, right? She goes from, all right, here we go. Let's see what you can do, to, damn, this is the Red Queen in every way, shape, and form. This
yeah.
is, and there's a reason why I always say she had one of the great world title reigns in Stardom history. She could have the greatest if she ever got the belt back, because she's 10 times better now than she was then.
Mm, yeah.
Never going to get that. But we had this. And to me, this is as solid of an A as you can get, because there's the highs, there's the lows, but those highs are as high as can be. Those lows aren't as low as can be, obviously,
No, no.
but they're lows that you have to take in. It's the reason she stays out of S, really, because of the
Yes.
first, before the Shuri match. It's the
BS.
BS. It's the BS and the AS. The
Yes.
BS, you know,
There's
it
enough
is what it
BS
is.
in this reign.
There's enough BS to keep her in A. And I
Yeah.
think that's a perfect spot for the reign, ranking her one of the great reigns in history.
Mm.
Where would you like to put Utami?
I would put her above Miko Satomura.
Yeah, thank
Be-
you.
yeah, I don't know whether I'd put her against. The problem is with the Kagetsu reign, there's so much personal feelings surrounding Kagetsu that it's difficult to rate it fairly when it comes to these like minuscule little
Yeah.
ratings. Um,
I hmm, I'm thinking. It's not easy, obviously. Both
yeah.
fantastic reigns. My argument for Utami, I guess, would be the fitting end, giving her the edge. B
And the
Priestley
Meltzer
was not a
scale.
huh?
And the Meltzer scale. Like
And the Meltzer scale
ultimately,
match. Yeah.
yeah, ultimately, like that's as much as a single moment shouldn't influence, like that one moment encapsulated so much when it comes to bringing people into Stardom more than anything that Kagetsu did. Like I look back at shout out to Super Eye Patch Wolf who did an incredible video on like Japanese wrestling and mentions Kagetsu's reign, does a fantastic job on what she meant. But and talks about basically that not enough people know about how hard she worked and what she did. And it's true. because like it just kind of is one of those moments that will get lost in time because it's not the highlight moment in a Stardom period. Utami's single moment there with Shuri drew people in, and that's post Kagetsu.
Yeah. 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 It's it's a coin flip in many ways, but I think what Utami did for Stardom's overall popularity is just so undeniable.
Yeah.
Um, I we both lived it in real time. Obviously, I just remember how many more people talked about Stardom because of Utami's reign.
Yeah. Asked me
And
to
for
pick a
the
wrestler, I'm picking Kagetsu. Asked me to pick
right,
a more important reign. That moment there just did so
yeah,
much more.
and the fact that Utami had a world title reign like this, and people still whined and hoped and cried that she would get it again, I think speaks to what she's accomplished. Even so, all right, we got 3 left. The last 2 won't be long discussions. Um, what a year 2023 was. Yeah, no, but before that, before everything came crashing down and hurt inside, we had Shuri. We had Shuri. Thank God we had Shuri. I can't say that enough. Thank God we had Shuri. We didn't. I don't think we knew how good we had it.
No.
Because I remember the day. I miss the early days of the beginning of Shuri's reign when people were like, "Oh, her matches are kind of the same. They're all really good, but they're kind of." I miss those days. People, we were spoiled. Okay, we were having Shuri and Saya Kamatani do amazing things at the same time, and people were complaining, "Oh, what? Shut up! You
So
included."
are we not going to knock points off of her for the mediocre first half of her
See,
championship
I
reign?
didn't find it mediocre. Everyone else did. I never found it mediocre. I enjoyed the first half of her reign, specifically the 2 nights of Julia and Mayu. I enjoyed that. The Jamaica match, I didn't even know that happened. I'm not gonna lie to you. I forgot that happened. I'm reading this title right now, so that doesn't help. But everything kicked into gear, starting with that Risa Sarah match, to tell you to shut up.
Well, hang on, what kicked into gear, did you say? So you're
Listen,
suggesting it wasn't into gear prior?
listen. To me, it was. I was on the Mirai bandwagon before many, so I enjoyed the Mirai match. The Julia match is fantastic. Like, very underappreciated that year, I think. Fantastic match, very physical. The Mayu match is weird because it's very good, but it's not the bet. Well, we know what the best of those two are now. They told us that. And also the 2 nights was weird.
Yeah.
Thank God that was a one-time thing. Again, Jamaica match. I have no recollection of that match. I'm not gonna lie to you. The
So it
Risa
was a
Sarah
good
match.
match.
The Risa Sarah match though is when everything was like, oh, that's the pivot for the reigns too. I feel like Saya was the top champion at the time. Felt like, right? She had the Nazi Poi one. My brain is not working. The Tam one
He
at
had an
World
Inagi
Class.
defense, which was there, but
Yeah, that was very forgettable. But she had the Poi one. She had the Tam one. That kind of gave her the edge. And then the Risa Sarah one came around, and I was like, oh boy, here we go. So let's talk about the reign. Like I said, 365 days, perfect. Defended the title against Mirai, Julia, Mayu Utani, Hameka, Risa Sarah, Momo Watanabe, Tam Nakano, Nanai Takahashi, Maika, Utami Hayashishita, and Julia once again. She faced the best of the best. Period. Right? Like, yes, you had the Mirais in there, the Hamekas in there, which were to raise both of them up. No. This isn't slander Hameka. This isn't slander Hameka and Micah too at the time. This was to raise them up, right?
yeah.
Shuri's the unbeatable force. You want to talk about final bosses?
Yeah.
No
I
one
was waiting
had.
for us to get to Aura.
Yeah, I'm just gonna skip to her. Unbeatable presence. You
Only
know,
person here to match her is Miko Satomura.
like just unbelievable. The feeling of every Shuri match. Um, Match quality is excellent. You know, has the match of the year in it. You know, it ends it. The perfect end. I understand what happened with Julia's reign, whatever. That doesn't affect Shuri. It was the right person that won in the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're just going here, there, and everywhere. We've been doing this for over 2 hours. Okay. Like I'm tired. Um, Importance is very key, I think, for me with Shuri's reign, because this is when Stardom had gained so much steam. Can they keep it?
Mm-hmm.
2022 for many, not everybody, but many, is considered maybe their greatest year from start to finish, just with everything that went on. Who's the top champion at that? It's Shuri. She had to carry that banner that her and Utami started all the way to the end of the year into the story and match with Julia. She's not as important as Mayu. She's not as important as Io.
No.
Probably, levels, I would even argue below all the A's. It's actually no, I won't say all the A's, because carrying and putting and keeping Stardom on the map to the point that it did, Stardom became the conversation point. Rossi Ogawa came in second, for example, for Booker of the Year for 2022 in voting. That was not imaginable in something as big as the Observer. Again, Shuri's at the top of that.
It's a different type of importance. Like Utami is top of A because of essentially a singular match. We kind of, she gets a massive boost because of the one match, which also featured Shuri. Shuri doesn't get the benefit of that boost here. Miko Satomura gets importance over what's essentially a 5-month period, lifting a company that desperately needed a big name. Shuri doesn't really get that benefit of coming into a very small company. Stardom at this point is established. It's a big name. It's already rising. It's already had the benefit of being lifted up.
Sure.
And so she's having to now lift up a company that's already lifted and carry a company that's basically gotten the boost it's already going to
Yeah.
get. And lifting it up that extra 10% after 90% of the work's already been done, it's very difficult to do. The hard work's already
Especially with
been
what
done.
happened in 2023.
Yeah. I mean, you could make an argument that really 2022 was the last brilliant year for Star. And I know, like, we've only had one full year now to compare it from, so that's a bit unfair. But after 2022, the wheels did start to fall off through a lot of outside factors and stuff. But everything was still rolling very much in 2022. And while some of Shuri's reign wasn't perfect, she did a lot of things really, really well. And it's not like she did anything wrong as champion. She
No.
had that final boss aura energy perfect. Every challenger that got thrown her way, she dispatched of them as you would expect her to as champion. She
Yeah.
treated it as you would expect as a top champion. She carried her role perfectly. The only complaint you could maybe make is maybe she wasn't the most marketable wrestler, but you're not putting her in that position to necessarily sell photo books and stuff. That's not her role. She's there to be the badass top star, top champion kind of person. Like, she did what you would expect her to do.
She was, you know, she's the final boss. That's not her nickname,
Mm.
but she was for every match. She became unbeatable. Like
Against
if
the
I,
stacked roster.
yeah, against the stacked roster, champion, or she felt like the top world champion. She had an incredible
Mm.
5-star, obviously. Shuri became a cheat code for a few years there. It's like, oh, it's 5-star time. Let's see Shuri be the best in the world.
Yeah.
It's what she did. And like I said, the names alone, Julia, Mayu, Nanai, she went through Stardom's history. Utami. Okay, let me talk about this Utami match. Okay. I think this Utami match is the second best match between these two.
Which one are you talking about? The win or the November match?
The November match.
Yeah.
I think it's unbelievable. And the only thing that hurts it is that it was the match before Queendom. I think it would be remembered even more fondly if it wasn't that. It was in my top 10 wrestling matches of the year because of it. You know, it was also in my top 10, that match with Julia at the end of the year, because it was number one. It was number one, folks. You know, match quality, you could say what you want about the first half. I still think she had great matches in the first half. The Julia one specifically, I point to. Impact, Shuri did everything she was asked to do in this ring, you know? She helped raise up people. She faced the best of the best. She beat the best of the best. And in the end, she gave the big crowning moment to Julia that was supposed to be a big chime difference maker. It was a very impactful reign that proved in 2023 they couldn't follow through. That's not her fault at all. She, like you said, that 10%, arguably harder than the full 90 once you get there, because they were at such a high level and they just brought it a little bit higher. Length, she had the length.
Yeah. This is a reign that benefits in hindsight because Shuri had been doing, you kind of mentioned for years she was a cheat code.
Yeah.
People kind of expected her to somehow reach another level as champion when she was already performing at that champion level for 2 years prior. That was really, I think, the biggest hindrance was like she was already doing what she was doing 2 years prior. And so people were expecting basically impossible for those first few months. And I'll put my hand up, I was probably doing the same. And I think by the end of the run, people realized what was happening, you know, what we were getting. It was like, well, no, this is a fantastic reign. And then 6 months removed, a year removed, it's like, and no, that Shuri reign was special.
Yeah. So where do we want to rank it?
I think it's probably still in A tier.
Okay.
I think it's the very top of A tier.
I'm okay making those two because of it in the history. I'm okay leaving those two at S, but I want it to be known that if anyone was to join them, it would be Shuri's reign, in my opinion. I will agree to A, mostly because I'm tired. However, I would have even said low S. Below both of them either way. But I think she at least deserved the respect of me saying that because I think she did that great. But I'll leave her an A because I'm not even gonna say it because like Io had weak title defenses in her reign. Shuri's weak ones were like whatever.
I guess for me, the difference for me between the A and the S tier is there was like Shuri, like all the work had been done to a certain extent for Shuri there, and like Stardom was the ball was rolling, and like there was already a steam train. Whereas both Io and Mayu kind of had to really lift Stardom to the next level and carry them on their back for a certain level. Shuri kind of had the benefit of a stacked roster doing stacked things across the board.
Yeah.
Again, not Shuri's fault, but
I think you're right, and I think I can live with that. You know, roster wise, she had the best one of every champion here. So that, you know, but she lived up to that as well as champion, which is very important. I think this is we have to do 2 more people, but like I feel pretty perfect about this list. The fact that you went from Mayu to Utami to Shuri, we're never touching that again, folks. Just lock it up, give up. That it was just a special run that's a 3-year run that is untouchable.
I thought it was continuing.
Yeah, we all did. 115 days. Julia as World of Stardom champion. The reign that was built up since the end of 2019 when she joined the company. We knew this day would come. She would get to that moment. It would be incredible. The moment was incredible. The match was incredible. One of the all-time great matches. Period. One of the all-time great matches I've seen. It's incredible. Great rewatch value, by the way, if anyone's wondering.
Oh, yeah.
Which was weird because that was one match I was like, I wonder if I rewatch this, will it be the same as in the moment? Because Shuri and Utami I knew. Like, that is one of the greatest matches ever. But this one, I was like, it's interesting because the build up to that Julia moment was so long and so heartfelt with the 5-star. And it's amazing. It's an amazing match.
Mm.
And then there's the rain. So the rain, in terms of I don't know, handling, tough. Right off the bat, it is on the back burner because of a trios tournament that was exciting in idea, and then it happened, and we said, "Oh, that was tough."
And it kept going, and it kept
And it
going,
kept
and it kept
going.
going.
It felt like the longest tournament of the year, and it was only a month. She would defend the
That
belt
went for
against
2 months.
Oh my god, it did. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it did.
Yeah, yeah.
You're right. You're right.
And we were justified in it feeling like a long time.
Okay. So she defended the title against Sue Suzuki.
Hmm.
A very fitting first defense.
Yeah.
Very good match. Which isn't shocking, but I don't think they lived up to where my expectations were through the freaking roof, to be fair, based off their first match. But they didn't live up to it. Still a great match.
Yeah.
And then you have the Mayukihi double countout, which depends who you talk to. I think the match is great. The optics behind it are not.
Match that may have single-handedly destroyed modern Stardom.
Is this the match? Wait. Let me rephrase. Is this the moment? Okay, let me rephrase again. Is this the match in Stardom's history that we have the most details behind? Like, in terms of all these world title matches that we've talked about, besides, like, I guess, like, Act and Yoshiko or something. Like, is this the most with, like, so much cloudiness around it that we've talked about in terms of, like, backstage politics?
I'd argue we have more details around this than the Act.
You're probably right.
We've actually heard direct sources coming
Sure.
from this. Whereas that match, we still kind of people have talked about it, but the people involved have kept relatively silent about it.
Yeah.
Julie just outright told us what she thinks about what happened here.
Yeah. So obviously, this match went 17 minutes to 57 seconds, all at war between the two. Great match. But on the show, outdone by Saikon Tani versus Suzuki, notably. But a great match nonetheless. But as we know, this is ultimately, like you said, the match that might have ended Modern Stardom. Or the peak once and for all. Because going to this match, I was pretty excited for it. Mikey's great. Julia's great. I was like, all right, this is when the rain gets going. Little did I know this is actually when the rain really ended. So you know, the story behind it, Julia didn't feel comfortable wrestling Mayukihi. Mayukihi clearly didn't want to lose to Julia. Goes to a double countout because of Julia's hesitation. The higher ups of Bushiroad decide to take the belt off of Julia, which would happen 1 month later at All-Star Grand Queen, and one of the all-time great shows in professional wrestling history, a great main event against Tam Nakano. But there is a lot of tough optics around this, you know.
Yes.
So let's look at our little list here that we've been looking at this whole time. Importance. Not a positive one.
No.
Should have been. No. And that's the biggest problem. Match quality. Now I will defend Julia. There's great matches in this reign.
Yep.
Every match was at least very good for me.
Yes.
So I'll give her that. Check. Give her a check. Okay. Champion aura. That's what Julia does. You know, her aura is outmatched. That's why WWE signing her. Impact. We just said it might be the end of modern Stardom as we know it. Probably. Well, we might. I mean, Rossy Ogawa no longer works for this company. Julia no longer works for this company. Utami Hayashishita no longer works for this company. Must I say more? Is it because of this reign all that fallout happens?
So S tier?
S tier, if S has a different meaning, maybe. And length, not long.
No, but that doesn't matter.
So, because of match quality and because of champion aura, she is not a D tier champion.
No,
Congratulations,
no,
Julia. She ain't a B tier champion though.
no.
uh, I also had when I said earlier when we were talking about B, I was like, I know who's joining her. It was Julia. It was always Julia.
Yeah,
Not her,
yeah.
not Julia's
This is
fault.
no, 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 no. Unless you're on the pro Bushi side of things and felt she should have been happy wrestling Mayuki. That not for debate here. That's not what we're talking about. But yeah, the match quality was good. Like I guess like if you didn't like, it wasn't really a match. It was a fight. They barely entered the ring. I
Mm,
really enjoyed what they did.
mm,
The matches were really good. The only
mm,
knock really is I think the Julia had better matches with Tam and Suzu outside of this championship
mm,
reign, but the matches were still really good
mm-hmm.
overall. Championship aura through the roof. But yeah, the impact, like ignoring the jokes
Oh,
about
by
it
the way, the
ending.
impact of who she dropped the belt to was that good?
Well, I mean, look, you're talking about in the moment, like that was a
Yeah, that's fine.
fantastic moment. But yeah, like the overall impact for the reign is pretty mediocre overall. And yeah, the legacy of this reign, it's pretty forgettable in the long run. It goes above B because like the matches were all fantastic and she felt like a far bigger champion. But I mean, yeah, definitely doesn't deserve to go in the B tier.
You know, the problem is it should have been a layup. This should have been
Yeah,
like going into it. I think everyone was like, "Oh, this could be one of the great." That was the problem. Everyone had the hopes this could be one of the great reigns in Stardom's history, and it was
mm,
so deflating when it was all over. And then she would go on to hold the strong women's title and then leave the company. Not the picture anyone had when she beat Shuri for the belt.
yeah.
And let's talk about the final reign here before we wrap up. Oh, Tam, 211 days as champion. Won the
Didn't
title from.
feel it.
Oh, I felt all those days, buddy. I felt every single one. She defended the title in 211 days 3 times. 3 times.
This is one of the most unique championship reigns for a
Mm,
whole mess of reasons. Obviously, she wins it at All Star Grand Queendom,
mm-hmm.
big match, like literally the biggest stage Stardom's ever wrestled on, Yokohama Arena. Six and a half thousand people, I think, overall were in the building. I was one of them. Yay for me. Um, Great match with Mina Shirakawa, which was unfortunately burdened with the double title match stipulation, which would then go on to burden this title reign even more because they then have to deal with the white belt, which she then dropped to Mirai. We had the Megan Bain title match, which I think surprised people. It was a good match,
Wasn't
unknown to
Megan where she was at the end, though.
no, but like I think
No.
people going into it weren't sure what to expect, and I think
Sure.
surprised a lot of people with the quality of that match.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had the 5-star Grand Prix, which obviously took time away from where the title could be defended. We had the Natsuko Tora match after the 5-star Grand Prix, which wasn't
Oof.
the best match. Tora was running pretty strong through that tournament, but she kind of needs the right opponent. Tam clearly wasn't it. They didn't really mesh that well. In the fallout of that match, it turns out Tam had a knee injury. They delayed the next title match as long as they could with Suzu Suzuki. She missed the appointed date in November. They then tried to delay the stripping of the championship as long as they could, which is where the 200 plus day reign kind of comes from because, sorry, the October defense. They just tried to delay it as long as possible to get the match to happen before eventually having to vacate the championship. So 200 plus days, 3 defenses, a white belt reign in there as well, which kind of pulled away from it. It's a very unusual championship reign for us to close out on here.
This reign was my headache of 2023. This, along with Stardom and how it was handled, because I feel like every day it was like, oh, maybe it'll get better. Oh, maybe it'll get better. oh, maybe it'll get better. My only bright side was Suzu winning the 5-star. And she was going to beat Tam. And that didn't happen either. Now look where I am. Suzu world champion? Nope. As of this recording, she's injured. I don't know where to rate this. You know how much I could not stand this reign. We talked about it at length many, many times off air. I don't enjoy. Truthfully, I didn't really love any of these three defenses. The Mina match is pretty good. I don't really remember it. I just remember the shock of a second double champion. Megan Bain was a nice surprise, but it's not like, I mean, we just talked about Shuri, Utami, and Mayu back to back to back. You know, it's like, and it didn't, I don't think any of her matches reached Julia's second best defense. And Julia had the belt just as long, I guess, technically, in terms of title matches. And the Natsuko one.
She also gets the Julia match where she won the belt, which was, again, they've had better matches, but it was a really good match.
I mean, this is compared most to what? The Mayu reign? The first one, obviously. Like, it's
I mean, it definitely eclipses the Mayu reign.
Sure, but not by much, because it doesn't do anything for me. It's 4 matches.
Basically, Legacy gets hurt. Legacy gets hurt because I think, both of them, incidentally, they're double champions, and I don't think either of them benefit from being double champion there.
No.
Tam does get the benefit, I think, of having better aura at this stage than Mayu
For
does.
sure.
Yeah. Match quality is probably even, because you'd probably argue Mayu had the better match with Io than any of Tam's matches, but Tam probably had better matches overall, because I think the Tam Mina match and was better than probably the Yoko Bito and Kagetsu matches. Impact is probably about equal. So
it's a pretty negative impact.
More.
We're talking about the death of Stardom over here.
It's not great, but again, like, I'm not blaming that purely on, because it's a booking situation, not purely a Tam situation here. It's not great. It's a D tier reign.
I think she's the top of D tier personally. That's where I was going to go.
That's fair.
I was not going to fight for it to be better than the Mayu injury reign, which was shorter. But it's like, it's very similar in what they do. They each had 3 defenses. They each got hurt. They each relinquished the title. Well, Mayu technically lost the title, I guess, but whatever. They both lost the Wonder in the title reign.
Yes.
In weird situations that kind of hurt it overall. I think the worst part with Tam's is Mariah never challenged for the world after that. It's just like, I beat you. I don't want the world now, but I beat you, you know? It's like, and she held it a lot longer.
Yeah.
That was not, I mean, it'll help with the length thing, I guess, but I felt every part of that 211 days. Yeah. No, so that's it. Kind of a, we were riding high there for a little bit. And we had a womp womp there at the end. But this is your red belt tier list. I'm sure people will react perfectly fine to Tam's placement, specifically.
Well, they're not going to, like, most you could argue it's a C tier. Like, you can't argue for her to be anything above that.
Yeah, like, here's the reason she's below B. Okay, folks? B had a full title reign. Put someone over in the end. That's it. Like, that was a full title reign, didn't end prematurely, had enough defenses. Julia's ahead of her because the matches were really good. She had the championship aura just after that. And then everyone above that, I don't need to fight for. You can figure that out. Well, that's it. Plugs?
Yeah, I mean, this episode's gone on long enough, so I'm not going to hold you guys up for too long, but you can find me on Twitter/X at OneUpCulture. You can find pretty much all of my work at the moment over at Razura, at Razura Mag on Twitter, and just, look up Razura on the website, internet. You'll find us there. That's where all my written stuff's going. We're doing some visual and video stuff as well. You can find us on YouTube, So be sure to keep up to date on all of that goodness.
This episode comes out the day of the Marigold Cork and Hall show, so I will have content up for that show, including a review on voiceswrestling.com. I should also have a YouTube quick review about the happenings on that show, if you want to check that out as well. Should be a pretty fun, exciting show as they set up for Summer Destiny 2024. And I believe that's it. Check out the 5-Star Joshi show. Trent will be back on that this week as well. So me and Trent, if you want more me, Trent talking, but more current day, we'll be talking more about that Marigold Cork and what it sets up for Summer Destiny 2024. We'll also be talking the Stardom happenings, TJPW happenings, Sendai Girls happenings, and of course some. Am I missing something? Maybe not. I think that's it. I think that's it on that show. There's a lot this week.
Who knows what else might come out between now and then.
But make sure you subscribe to this podcast. Check out all the other Count Out podcast shows. There's many shows, including Ring Post Radio, which is my show. Ichiban Sweetcast, which is a New Japan show. It's Dominion time, so you probably want to go check that out. It's a good time to check it out. I don't know if they're feeling good about New Japan these days, but go check it out nonetheless.
Desperado's in the main event. It can't be that bad.
That's true. I'm tired, so we're wrapping up here. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll be back next time with a special faction-specific series beginning. All hail the Queens. So long, everybody!